Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
All right. It's been a little quiet in here, but we're going to get this show on the road. I want to say welcome and thank you all for being here this afternoon for this joint meeting between our two boards, the Board of Education, the Board of County Commissioners. I think as we embark on this discussion today, this meeting today, it's important for us to level set. I know we're all encouraged by the positive relationships we've fostered over the last few years, and I'd like to think that we've achieved a lot of this by keeping our eyes focused on the North Star, which is really ensuring that our children receive a high-quality education and leading them to opportunities that we know can only come through education. And I suspect that both of our boards will continue to, particularly tonight and moving forward, ask really tough questions, but we'll continue to keep that in a spirit of camaraderie. And so with that said, I do want to make sure that everybody understands that the leadership from both boards came together to work on tonight's agenda. We really believe that the items that we're reviewing, the presentations that you'll see, are critical to ensuring that we can understand the challenges, but also the opportunities that are in front of us. And again, we can seize the opportunity if we continue to work together. I am really, really glad to be here tonight and sharing the dais with Chair Sneed, and she's going to lay out the rules of engagement.
So the rules of engagement are, of course, but we already know this, is that we must be respectful of each other. This is the opportunity for us to better understand how both of our boards work, our budgets work, some of the obligations that we have, and how decisions are made for both parties. So we have a tight agenda for today. We've asked staff to limit their presentations to 10 to 12 minutes, followed by about a 15 to 17-minute question period. We split the baby. The Board of Education is typically used to asking 1-minute question with a 30-second follow-up, and I believe the Board of County Commissioners is used to a 3-minute question, 3-minute question period. So we're going to ask for 2 minutes for your question, to get your question out. Staff as well to, be responsive but not long-winded. And that'll be followed by a 30-second follow-up of the board members. Each of the boards should refrain from or defer to the opposing is not a good word. No. Our counterparts, our colleagues, to asking questions about the respective topics that's not related to the board that you belong to. The last thing is, we probably will not be able to acknowledge all of the questions that you desire to ask today, but you have a note card in front of you, note cards in front of you. And if you can just jot your questions down, we're going to collect those at the end for those questions that we don't get to. We have a timekeeper today. Christine is going to be keeping the time for our clerk. The BOCC clerk, she raised her hand over here to my left, and she will be the timekeeper for today. We're going to do some introductions in a minute, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, but I will take a moment of personal privilege today to recognize the founding day for a public service organization, Delta Sigma Theta, the sorority. And we have several members here, Commissioner Lee, Board Member Byers-Bailey, our General Counsel, Andre Mays, as well as Deputy, I know I missed
Dr. Johnson.
Dr. Johnson as well. And for those that I missed, happy Founders Day sorors. All right, with that being said, I think we'll start around the day, I'm calling it the day, it's our mock day is here with introductions and then followed by staff that are here as well.
Good evening, everyone. Crystal Hill, Superintendent.
Good evening, Andre Mays, General Counsel for the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Board of Education.
Good evening, George Dunlap, elected by the people of District 3, County Commission.
Hello, everyone. I'm Susan Rodriguez McDowell, elected by the people of District 6 to the Mecklenburg County Board of, what are we? County Commission.
I'm Melissa Easley, represent District 1 on the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Board of Education.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Yvette Townsend Ingram, Board of County Commission at large.
Good evening. I'm Thelma Byers-Bailey, and I represent District 2 on the school board.
Good evening. I am Mecklenburg County Commissioner Elaine Powell. I represent Huntersville, Davidson, and Cornelius, and North Charlotte.
Good afternoon, everyone. Lee Rankin. I serve in District 3 on the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Board of Education and also serve here as Vice Chair.
Good evening. My name is Lee Altman, County Commissioner serving at large and also serving as Vice Chair of the County Commission.
Good evening again. My name is Stephanie Sneed. I serve as the Chair of the Board of Education, elected by the residents of District 4.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Jarrell. I've been elected by the people of District 4. I also have the honor and privilege of serving as the Chair of the Board of County Commissioners.
Good evening, Monty Witherspoon, Member at Large, Charlotte-Mecklenburg School Board.
Good evening, Arthur Griffin, Mecklenburg County Commissioner at Large.
Good evening, Summer Nunn, Board of Education, representing District 6, which is South Charlotte.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Vilma D. Leake, and I represent the most powerful district in the county, and that's District 2.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Klein. I represent District 5 from Matthews up through Sedgefield.
Good evening. I'm Laura Meyer, and I represent District 5 on the Board of County Commissioners.
Hola, soy Liz Monterrey Duval. I represent the Board of Education at large.
Hello, I'm sorry for being late. Drove in from Virginia where there's lots of snow. But I'm here, and I'm Lenore Shipp, at-large board member.
Good evening, Tyrone Wade, County Attorney.
Good evening, Dina DiOrio, County Manager.
You want to do executive?
Can we introduce the executive team, please, Dina?
Good evening. Mike Bryant, Deputy County Manager.
Good evening. Derek Ramos, Deputy County Manager and Chief of Staff.
Good evening. Leslie Johnson, Deputy County Manager.
Good evening, Anthony Troutman, Deputy County Manager.
Anybody else?
CMS has some.
Dr. Hill?
Good evening. Kelly Klutz, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening. Keisha Khan, Chief Human Resources Officer.
Good evening, Melissa Bachnight, Deputy Superintendent. Good evening, Ingrid Medlock, Chief of Staff and Community Engagement.
Good evening, Rocky McGregor, Chief Executive in Residence.
Good evening, Scott McCulley, Chief Compliance Officer.
What's your job?
Good evening, Tim Ivey, Chief Operations Officer.
Good evening, Shauna Spickard, Chief Communications Officer.
Good evening, Candace Salmon-Hosey, Chief Technology Officer.
Beth Thompson, Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer.
Got it? All right, if you'll stand and let's do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
All right, for the first presentation tonight, we'll turn it over to the county manager. I believe it's Adrian Cox.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first presentation we're going to hear tonight is from our Budget Director, Adrian Cox, and this is, as it says on the title, Overview of County Services and our Choice Matrix. There were some questions from some school board members around services that are mandated and required to be funded by Mecklenburg County and how those are developed. So Adrian's going to walk you through how those decisions get made and which of those programs are required, mandated, and how they get funded. So Adrian?
All right. Thank you, County Manager DiOrio. Good evening, Chairman Jarrell, Chair Sneed, and members of both bodies. Today I'm going to provide you with a brief overview of the county services and their alignment to our choice matrix, and I'm also going to share some information about county's funding for CMS within the context of our overall budget. So this is a summary of the county's budget structure. The county's annual operating budget consists of 21 funds. General and debt service are the primary funds and the only funds that include any countywide property taxes. Those 21 funds include 24 departments, 4 major community partners, of which CMS is one, and 4 separate categories that are not associated with any specific department. These departments are further delineated into 265 different services. A service represents a specific function of the county to support our residents and community or a distinct component of our internal operations. So in your material, you will find a table of all of the county's 265 services organized and color-coded by our choice matrix. The choice matrix is a tool that we have used for many years to illustrate the flexibility that's available to the county for funding different services. The matrix applies a color coding for 4 categories based on 2 factors. First, does the county have any flexibility whether or not to provide the service? That is it a mandatory function? And then does the county have flexibility with regard to how much funding is allocated in the operating budget? So this determination gives us the 4 categories of the matrix, and I'm going to go over each category in the next few slides. I do want to emphasize that the choice matrix, with this, what we're doing is we're making very broad generalizations about each of the services, and there are some exceptions related to some of the individual activities within the services, so it's not perfect. Also, I want to note that in preparing for this meeting, our office reviewed and updated a few of the designations to make sure that we were sharing with you the most updated information. So services that are required and the amount of funding is also required are noted in the red font. With these services, there is no flexibility within the operating budget. These services include the annual debt service payments that fund the capital investments made by the county for our facilities, including schools. There is also pass-through revenues that are collected by the county but are allocated directly to other entities, such as transit sales tax. Special tax districts for law enforcement and fire protection fall into these categories because the funds can only be used for these districts and these services must be provided in the unincorporated areas. And there is the current year cost for any post-employment benefits. There is a total of $649 million, or 26% of the budget that falls within this category of being a required service with a required amount. Programs for which the county is required to fund, but there's flexibility in terms of the amount, are shown in blue, and they total to $1.3 billion, or 52% of our budget. This includes our funding for CMS and CPC, because counties are required to fund elements of the operations, especially for operating the facilities. This category also includes most of our public health and social service programs. It includes certain sheriff functions, including operating the jail. The county is required to conduct all elections. We must also operate the Register of Deeds office. We must provide for emergency medical services, which in Mecklenburg County, we do that with a partnership with Medic that receives the majority of their funding from fees for service, and then our budget includes a supplement. We are also the provider of code enforcement, which is funded entirely with fees, and we must implement tax collection and property assessment. There are also a few functions that all counties are required to have, such as commissioners, an attorney, and the clerk's office. So those are the services that the county is required to provide, but we have discretion in terms of the amount that we budget for it. The next category is a very small category within our budget, and it consists of programs that are discretionary, but if the county does them, then the amounts are set in the annual budget. And so this category includes economic development agreements that have already been made, and so we have to budget for those. Some of the services that the county performs that are funded with fees, and some memberships that have funding formulas for specific amounts. So these services make up only 1% of the operating budget. And then many of the services that the county provides are not required, and they can also be funded at any amount. This includes libraries, parks, MEC Pre-K, and our support for homelessness and housing services. These are discretionary services. There's also many non-mandated services that help vulnerable populations, such as senior nutrition, behavioral health, employment assistance, and services for veterans. This category also includes our internal support functions, such as IT, public information, and HR. All of the county's community service grants for nonprofits are discretionary, as is the funding for arts and culture. And so these services total to $536 million, or 21% of the budget. So that is the service matrix. This chart shows the county's total budget across multiple funds divided into 9 major categories. Education and literacy is the largest, and it includes funding for CMS, CPCC, as well as funding for debt service on schools, libraries, MEC Pre-K, and a few nonprofits that support literacy. This category makes up 41% of the entire budget. Health and Human Services follow, making up 16% of the budget. Government facilities, that includes the capital and operating of county buildings, enterprise technology, and a little bit of fleet. This makes up 13%. 10% of our budget goes to parks, environment, and land use. 8% to justice and public safety, including the operations of the jail. 4% is for administration and internal support, and this includes HR, IT, public information, legal, and county manager's office. There is 4% that is considered pass-through funding, and then financial services makes up 2% of the budget. And in addition to our central finance department, this includes tax collection and property appraisal. And then the other category that you see here includes Register of Deeds and elections. So this chart serves as a snapshot for what the county does. Funding for CMS operating has grown in a total amount as well as in proportion to our budget. This chart shows the total funding that the county has provided to CMS in the bar graph, and the line at the top reflects the percentage of the general fund. This year, funding to CMS makes up 30% of the general fund budget. So there is not a specific amount that the counties must fund schools. Funding for school facilities has traditionally been considered the responsibility of counties, and there are a few of those expenses that are explicitly noted in the statutes, but this should not be interpreted to mean that funding for facilities is the minimum that counties must provide to schools. The amount of county funding for facility operations is shown here in the gray portion of the bar charts on this chart. Again, the operating funding for CMS is 38% of our general fund. The general fund has grown by 3.9% on average over the last 10 years, 3.3% over the last 5 years, and also 3.3% over the last 3 years. Operating funding for CMS has grown by 5.2% over the last 10 years, 5% over the last 5 years, and 6.2% on average over the last 3 years. This chart shows the percent of the general fund allocated to CMS operating in the red line, and the percent allocated to all other general fund expenses in the green line. The dotted line simply shows the outlook if the trend continues, assuming the 5-year average of 3.3% increase in general fund each year and 5% annually increasing to CMS. Looking at the change in the property tax revenue in the general fund and the operating funding that the county provides to CMS, we see that what the county funds CMS is very closely related to the amount of property tax revenue that the county expects to receive. This chart shows the percent change in the county's general fund property tax revenue in the green line and the percent change in the funding to CMS operating in the red line. And you can see that these two lines follow a very similar pattern, with change in CMS funding exceeding the change in tax revenue in some of the years. This slide provides a summary of our total budget and the required property tax that is needed to fund the budget. I'm going to walk through these numbers, starting with the numbers that you see on the left of this table. You can see that our total budget is $2.5 billion, including general fund, our debt service fund, and some enterprise and special revenue funds. In the top two lines, I have broken out general fund budget and the funding for CMS against all of our other operating expenses. So some of the budget is funded with fund balance for one-time expenses, which is shown in the next column. In the general fund, this includes $4 million of one-time funding for CMS and approximately $30 million for all of the other general fund expenses. There's $81 million of fund balance in the debt service fund and $4.5 million in one of our enterprise funds. You'll recall that we also allocated $14.7 million of fund balance to cover a gap between expenses and revenue this year. And then the other funding column includes all of the other revenue in the budget except for property taxes. So there is some specifically for CMS for fines and forfeitures. Other funding in the general fund includes sales tax as well as state and federal revenues and fees, many which are restricted for those specific services. Debt service funding includes revenue for sales tax and lottery proceeds that are restricted to school capital and debt. The enterprise and special revenue funds are entirely funded with revenues. And the remaining amount that's not covered with these revenues is paid for with property taxes. And you can see the amounts and the required rates to generate that revenue on the last two columns of this table. So to summarize, the county has a property tax rate of 48.31 cents, which funds three major areas. First, 11.5 cents goes to fund debt service, including the debt for schools. This expense is also supported by sales tax, lottery proceeds, and other revenues dedicated for schools. The tax rate equivalent for CMS operating is 21.66 cents, and the remaining amount of 15.08 cents is required to fund all the other county services. So that is a summary of the county budget and the funding for CMS. I'll answer whatever questions you may have.
All right, board members, we have the opportunity to ask questions that have been presented today. As a reminder, these questions are limited to the budget presentation that you have seen here today, or questions that are related to that, and you have 2 minutes. Any CMS board members have any questions? Board Member Nunn.
Thank you for the presentation. As I look overall at what's happening with the county commission's funds, it feels as if the general fund growth is not holding the same for cost of not only CMS, but other county initiatives. Is there a comparison to the standard of living and the cost or the inflation? And is the growth rate above or below that? Do you guys have that data?
Well, so the budget has to be balanced. So it is always going to grow in terms of our other initiatives. It is going to grow with whatever's left, I guess is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So
Well, maybe to phrase it a different way, your growth rates over the past 10 years or the next 10 years are 3.9%. If you look at inflation or even standard of living, are we mapping those to see if the county's funds are, exceeding, meeting, or below what's anticipated the needs are if we continue to do all the same things the same way?
So we look at a variety of different things when we make the budget, and we make it looking, we try to project out, and we also have to plan for a single year. So I don't know if I can answer your question about beyond this year.
Maybe I'll rephrase. So we have the projections through 2030. Have we run any analysis on those?
Oh, so what you're seeing here is simply applying what the average percentage growth has been over the last 5 years out over multiple years.
Okay.
So these are not necessarily forecasts. This is just simply taking the trend that we have already experienced and seeing, well, what does it look like if we continue this trend?
Okay, so it's just a trend line.
That's right.
Okay.
Dina, were you going to say something to that?
I know, I'm assuming that Board Member Nunn got her question answered.
Somewhat, but we can save for later, yeah.
Okay.
Any other CMS board members have questions? So I have a general question about the budget category that you have, and it's in the green, is you have the option to provide the services and discretion over the amount. So my question is multifaceted, like how do you determine how much is going to be in that fund? How do you determine where those funds are going to be allocated?
So that is done just based upon what the need is to provide the service and what we think can be accomplished with it. So each year we have to evaluate what may be needed for parks, for libraries, those sorts of things. Those are just budget decisions.
And it's really based on how much revenue we have, right? So we back into our budget based on how much revenue we have. So the discretionary amounts will go up and down based on how much revenue we have, because the things that are not discretionary have to get funded. We fund them first, see how much revenue we have left, and then we try to put them in the respective buckets.
Okay. I have a follow-up question. As we tie into students and with the county, what category does support services for like foster children, McKinney-Vento, we categorize them as McKinney-Vento or homeless children, where does that follow? And then how do you determine budgetary allocations that support that particular category?
So in terms of our health and human services, the majority of those are going to be in that category where you have a funding choice, but you have no program choice. So we have to do it, but we still have to determine what the amount is.
So that just simply means you have to provide the support, and what is discretionary is the type of programs that are going to support that.
That's right. So there's an element of some of these that are going to be discretionary, and then there may be some activities in there where there's some practical considerations where we have to fund a certain amount.
Board Member Monterey Duval.
I'm just going to be direct because this is a thought that came into my mind. Why is CMS in the general fund and not in a required fund?
So pretty much all of what we fund is in the general fund except for debt service and then special revenues. So we're not really allowed to create a separate fund just for CMS.
Is that like a state law or something?
Let me defer to our CFO if he's got any.
The accounting gods won't let us, is the short answer. The accounting rules require it to be handled that way.
Thank you.
Let me, before you, yeah, before we, I want to see if any other board members have questions. I'm recognizing Board Member Nunn, if not. Board Member Nunn.
So when we look at, I know you've got the discretionary portion at 21%, but it also seems that the funding, the one that isn't, that CMS falls into, what type of rubrics or matrix are you guys using to determine what you do and what you don't do based on the funding that you have? And is there a measure of return on that as well?
So in terms of the rubrics that we use for making budget decisions on an annual basis,
Like, how do you determine what amounts get spent? You've got these 4 quadrants, but really it's the blue has some discretionary in it, as well as the green seems fully discretionary to some extent, although some different people may argue that here. But how do you determine, like, what amount and what's the return? Are you using a return on investment to determine those allocations?
so typically what we look at is at a service basis.
Okay.
And in terms of the individual requests that come into the budget process, we do ask for what is going to be the results of these, what are we expect to get from it. And then there's a lot of stuff that we just have to fund. There's expenses for different operations and things that we have to pay for.
We also focus on our board priorities, and we fund our board priorities. And so some of those priorities are discretionary. Probably all of them are discretionary, quite frankly. But we do focus on making sure that the board's priorities get funded.
So I want to do something real quick, because while the county commissioners are aware of this information, and this is really, questions are meant for the Board of Education, we do have a new county commissioner and Commissioner Townsend Ingram. So I do want to give latitude for her to be able to ask a question. So Commissioner Townsend Ingram, ask your question.
Thank you to my chair for that. He's so accommodating. And thank you, Adrian, for the presentation. So the reason that I was jumping is because I had a similar question to what Board Member Nunn had with regard to the fund growth. And what I wanted to ask was, is there a comparison, the 3.9%, is there a comparison to another county or another organization that does it in the same manner, so that we can see whether our growth is positive? Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Are there opportunities for improvement?
In comparison to other counties, I don't have that information in front of me. We can take a look at that. I would say that our revenues have trended, for a lot of non-urban counties, they have trended more positively. But in terms of funding for schools, we are typically in the top 3 of our state in terms of funding per pupil. But that's what I can just tell you off the top of my head.
It's good for the public to know that it's positive.
We do also compare individual revenues, like sales tax. We'll look at it statewide to see how that is trending and see how we compare. So.
Any other questions?
I don't see none.
Are we allowed to ask questions now? Or?
Well, the way we were trying to do it, and just so everybody's clear, the way we were trying to do it for the sake of time was to make sure that the presentations that were coming from the county was typically information that we already know as commissioners and vice versa. So we were allowing for the other boards to ask questions and react to the presentations that are seen. If it's something that's just pressing and we still have time, we certainly can. And so, but we don't want to just arbitrarily open this up, particularly when we know the information. So I'll recognize Commissioner Rodriguez-McDowell.
Thank you. I just think that I heard a question that was asked in different ways multiple times, and I didn't feel like it got really answered, and that is, how does the growth compare to cost of living increases? Is there a correlation there? Is that fair? I feel like I was hearing that question not being answered.
Okay, so inflation has been, 10%, I think was last year's inflation. Our growth has not been 10%.
Right, so I think that is getting at something.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
I can follow up.
All right, thank you. All right, we're ready for the next presentation.
Thank you. So the next presentation is a 5-year revenue forecast, and our CFO, David Boyd, will come to the podium and make that presentation. But just as a follow-up to the question, I think the bottom line is that our revenues are not keeping pace with inflation. So it makes us have to make those difficult decisions.
All right. Help me with.
Someone help him pull up his presentation?
You need assistance, David?
Yeah. How do I get my presentation up here? Thank you. Good evening. I'm David Boyd. I'm the county CFO. I'm going to try to put a little more specificity around some of the numbers that Adrian was talking about, and then kind of show you where we ended up in '24. Where's our money come from? Where's it go? What are we looking at for '25? And then longer term, '26 into the future, what does our revenue growth look like? I think you all have hard copies, is that right? Well, let's just get started then in the interest of time, and we'll let the presentation catch up. First slide, slide 2, I want to show you FY, here we go. I'll let you guys get that to presentation mode for me. FY '24, just to kind of show you where did we end up last fiscal year. And the pie chart there, I think, highlights the fact that as Adrian mentioned, most of our revenue comes from property tax and sales tax. In fact, almost 85% of our revenues come from, which way do I need to go? Come from property tax and sales tax combined. Those two revenue sources, along with investment income, are really the primary discretionary revenues that we have. We often refer to that as county dollars. That's money that we can spend that does not have restrictions on how we spend it. The next largest revenue source that we have is intergovernmental. Those are the ones with the most restrictions on them that are required to be spent for specific services. And then where do we spend our money? For fiscal year '24, last year, $597.5 million went to CMS operating. That was 38.2% of spending, as Adrian mentioned. If you combine that with the primarily mandated services that we have in Health and Human Services, that's 62.3% of the total budget. This does not include the total general fund budget. So this does not include what we spend on debt service or any of those other funds. For instance, there's another $172 million of debt service for CMS-related projects that are paid out of the debt service fund. So looking at 25 and how do our revenues grow, obviously property valuation is what drives revenue, but outside of revaluation years, that revenue typically grows between 2% and 3% a year. We're just capturing new construction that happens in the county, not changes in values of property. We only capture that every 4 years. So you can see that big jump in fiscal year '24. That was related to revaluation. The other thing that's important about what happened in fiscal year '24 is that residential valuation grew faster than commercial valuation, so some of the tax burden shifted from commercial property owners to residential property owners. And the other slide on the right side of the screen is what makes up the property that we tax. So by and large, it's real property, but there's also a significant component that is personal property, and most of that, I would say, is cars and trucks. And then there's a small slice of valuation that's attributed to property that is valued by the state. That's generally associated with the utilities. One of the largest ones is the nuclear plant. That's a big property valuation that Duke has to pay. But the state comes up with the values for those properties, and it's a relatively small slice of the overall valuation. So that's how the valuation grows. But if you look at the revenue that we get, that's based on the tax rate. And you don't see that big spike in fiscal year '24. even though the value went up, we reduced the tax rate just slightly above revenue neutral in fiscal year '24. The other thing that I think is important to understand about property taxes, this one is a little bit easier for us to forecast than some of the other revenues. We have a general understanding of how property values grow on non-revaluation years. And we don't have a lot of surprises in that as the year goes along, and we also do a pretty good job of collecting revenues. More than 99.5% of the property taxes are collected. You will see, so this chart's comparing what do we budget and what do we actually get. And you can see by and large, budget and actual are pretty close with outside of fiscal year '24. That was a revaluation year. And one of the things that were conservative in those revaluation years is how many people might protest their property valuation. What is that new valuation? And so we want to be conservative in those years. And in fact, we had a bit less in property tax appeals in '24, which I think speaks to what a good job the assessor's office did in the revaluation in that year. Sales tax, on the other hand, is a major challenge for us to forecast. What this chart's showing you is the rolling 12-month average change in property tax collections for the county. So for this 12-month period, how does it compare to 12 months prior? And you can see coming out of the pandemic, we saw property tax collections grow more than 20%. I mean, unprecedented growth in sales tax collections. I don't think anyone would have predicted that everyone would have sat at home and bought everything that existed on Amazon and gone to Home Depot every weekend to buy anything and everything to fix up their houses that they were working from. But since that date in, what's that, about mid-spring 2022, you can see the trend of that line is continuing to go down and down and down. The last number that we have was our collections that we got in November. We were at just about 2.5%. And you can see that line is kind of flattened out to what we believe is kind of the new normal. We're not going to see this 20% growth in sales tax, which has resulted in much of our growth revenue over the past several fiscal years has been this unprecedented growth in sales tax. I've got one additional number that just came in that might have us down closer to zero for this next month of sales tax. But the information that we get from the state lags about 3 months, so we don't have like sales tax data from Christmas yet. So we are trying to make some decisions on what's it going to look like going forward with very limited information. We only got 3 or 4 months worth of this fiscal year data on sales tax for the second largest revenue stream that the county has. So you can see, if you look back 10 years ago, we almost have double the amount of sales tax that we got in 2016. But the other thing I think is important to look at here is the gap between the budget and the actual for several of these years. So those pandemic years, 21, 22, 23, you can see there's a pretty big gap between what we actually collected and what we budgeted collect, because we didn't know this was going to happen. And it's very challenging for us to try to understand what is the new normal, except that if you look at 24 and 25, we think we've kind of landed back at it. And our sales tax actual collections last year compared to the budget were pretty tight, and we believe that's going to happen in 25 as well. The other thing that makes our sales tax challenging to forecast is the way sales taxes are paid and remitted to counties in the state. Nonprofit entities pay sales tax, and then they get a refund back. We don't have any visibility or control over when those refunds are requested or when the state pays them. And they can range from 7 to 11% of our total sales tax collections over the course of a year. So that is a swing of $20 million one direction or the other that we really don't know what's going to happen until it happens. So that leads us to be a little more conservative in our forecasts as well without knowing what's going to happen there. But looking at 25 in terms of some numbers, overall, where do we think we're going to end? Again, we have only 6 months of data for some revenues, only 3 months of data for others. We're still going to be refining these as we go through the process. But the biggest variances that I think we're going to see for fiscal year 25 is sales tax is going to be up just a bit, maybe about 2% above what we budgeted. The other number that jumps off the page there is our investment income. Interest rates have gone up and then back down, and we're trying to get our investment portfolio, which is about $1.6 billion, kind of reset to market rates, and we believe that we'll be able to enjoy some interest and investment earnings above what we budgeted, but I don't think that's going to continue into the future once we get our portfolio to mature and then reinvest it at market rates. So in total, county dollars, that property tax, sales tax, and investment income, again, that discretionary revenue stream, about $23 million above what we had budgeted for 25. On the spending side, about $51 million under what we had budgeted for fiscal year 25. So about 97% of what we budgeted on the spending side. Again, we try to be conservative here, but I think over the past several years we have budgeted a lot more tighter to what we've been spending, and seen less variances on the spending side than we have historically. So when we look at 26, again, we have little certainty on 25 just yet, and we're sitting here talking about what do we need to assume for 26. Property tax, this is not a revaluation year, so what do we think kind of growth is going to be in property tax? Sales tax and investment income, again, those three discretionary revenue sources that we've got. Property tax revenue right now, where we're starting at, and we're still continuing to look at this, an increase of revenue of about 1.4% compared to where we believe we'll end 25. So there's two things that we're looking at here. One is, what is our growth revenue, and then what is actual growth, which are two different things. You know, our actual growth is what do we think it's going to be this year compared to what do we think it's going to be next year. That is, what's the actual growth. And then we have growth revenue that is related to the budget. What do we think 26 is going to be compared to what we budgeted in 25? That's the growth revenue that we talk about, and how much more money do we have to allocate within the budget. Sales tax, right now, we're starting with a 2% actual increase. And then investment income, I think we've got one more year where that number is going to go up before our kind of lower yielding securities mature and we can reinvest them at a higher rate. So growth revenue that we're projecting for 26 is for county revenues is $49 million compared to actual growth of $26.2 million for 26. I apologize for the spreadsheet, but I really couldn't think of a better way to illustrate a whole bunch of information in one place. Maybe some of you are spreadsheet people, so this will resonate with you. But I'm trying to show here is what are we forecasting for the next 5 years in terms of incremental revenue. So we've got at the far left, what's the budget for 2025? And again, we're talking about growth revenue, not actual growth. So this is that somewhat larger number. Property taxes, an increase in the general fund of 23.6 million. So that far right column is the incremental annual revenue. The middle total, what's the total amount of revenue? Sales tax, an increase of $12.7 million. Coincidentally, investment income, an increase of $12.7 million. And then you can see year over year for 26, we're looking at about 3.5% increase, or $49 million, and then about 2.25% growth after that, if we assume normal growth for the next 5 years. This does not assume any type of property tax rate increase. It does not assume anything other than revenue neutral at the next revaluation for property taxes, which will be, the revaluation will be 27, effective for 28. So we're assuming revenue neutral for fiscal year 28. No tax increases are assumed here. So this is what we would be looking at as our start point for starting the budget for 2026 and what it kind of looks like going forward. Those are my slides to share with you. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Board members, you have any questions? Dr. Witherspoon?
Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation as well. I just had a question about residential revaluation. Is there a correlation between residential home values and school boundaries, school zones? And if so, is it a direct driver of home values, or is it just along the lines of mobility, how people choose to live?
Well, I think that question is probably better for the tax assessor, but anecdotally, I believe that's the case. If you think about decisions people make, you know, it's going to be related to what the schools are, and the perceived quality of the schools in the area are going to drive, you know, higher residential property values. But I don't have any specific data that I could share with you on that. We could see what we can come up with, but.
That's a question. Thank you.
Board member Monterey Duvall?
With the interest rates coming down in property and yes, in real estate, do you forecast any growth in that aspect?
So if we go back to how our property tax revenues come in, right? The year-over-year sales of property don't have any impact on our property tax revenue. It's just new construction that happens within the county that drives it in a year that isn't related to revaluation. Your point is correct, though. There has been some recent increases in property residential property sales.
Okay. Yeah, because I think I remember last year y'all had some revenue, I could be wrong, from refinancing of interest rates?
Yeah, so the Register of Deeds office does collect a real estate transfer tax that is related to property tax, property sales and property transfers. That is another one of those revenues that we're looking at this year that we only got 6 months worth of data on to see where we're going to come in. I don't think we're going to be back to where we were a couple of years ago, but that is starting to trend in the right direction for that revenue stream, which off the top of my head, I don't know what that total amount is right off the top of my head, but.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Board member Nunn?
Thank you for this. I think you guys are in a challenging situation, right, given the growth trajectory and cost of living and inflation. What are the main levers that you all are evaluating to potentially help increase your revenue that while minimizing the impact on, you know, certain populations, especially residential, meaning more so like commercial and things of that aspect?
Yeah, that is one of the challenges of local governments in the state of North Carolina. The only revenue stream that we have direct control over is the property tax rate. You know, you can see what's going on with trying to get a sales tax specifically for transit. We got to get the legislature to approve that. So we do not have the ability to move the needle on revenues except with the property tax rate in any meaningful way.
Can I ask a follow-up? Is there a way, we look at commercial versus residential, and a lot of the growth has come more at residential and personal, you know, tax increases. Is there a way to look at that more so from a corporate commercial side of things, given the growth and explosion in this county?
I'm not quite sure I understand what you're asking. We have to tax all property at the same rate.
Okay, so that's.
We do not have any flexibility there.
That was, you answered it.
So I have just a general question. Based on this forecasting, what impact, so what does that mean for the county budget? Like, just in a nutshell, can you just explain that? I know that's a very broad question, but I want to see, you know, what does that mean, like, in terms of making decisions in regarding the FY '26?
Yeah, so
Budget cycle.
I guess just in big pictures, if we're talking about $49 million in growth revenue to cover anything over and above what we did in fiscal year '25, that's where we're starting. And to kind of put that in perspective, we just looked at like salary and benefits for county employees, that's like $31 million. So now we're down to 18. Just once we cover, just roll up of what salary and benefits for existing employees would be. Plus. I mean, that's the challenge that we've got right now. Hopefully, we'll be able to, you know, see some positive changes on some of the revenue forecasts, but, you know, hope is not a strategy on that front. That's kind of to put it in perspective for you.
Yep, that's what I was asking. Thank you. And on this side, Board Member Nunn?
Yeah. I guess all counties are in the same situation in North Carolina, given the rules. How do we compare to other, especially larger urban counties, when we look at like where we are with our revenue projections, and how does that associate with their tax rates too? Do we have a comparison of ourselves to like the Wakes, the Guilfords, the Forsyths, the large growth, larger urban areas?
We do have that information that we could pretty easily share with you to see what the tax rates are at all those different places. I would say that the larger urban counties are kind of seeing the same picture as we are with sales tax and with, you know, property tax, and probably in the same boat now with trying to figure out, all right, now that we've enjoyed a couple, 3, 4 years of really extraordinary, unexpected growth, now what do we do? Because, you know, a lot of budgets got increased during that time, and now it's like, how do we continue to do that without having to cut back on some of those services that folks have enjoyed during that time period?
So we've got a couple minutes left in this segment. Any commissioners have anything pressing that you want to add? Commissioner Dunlap?
Yeah, I think it's important to share some additional information that hadn't been shared since we're talking about the budget. If you recall, last year, the county commission went $14 million
That's correct.
in the hole. So we haven't talked about that $14 million, which has to be paid back before we recognize any additional revenue. The other thing I will share with you, unless things have changed in terms of revenue income, all of the counties surrounding Mecklenburg County have a higher tax rate than Mecklenburg County. So a lot of this is about what services are being provided by the counties. And I can't remember what the tax rate is for Wake, but Wake's tax rate was significantly higher than Mecklenburg County.
That's right.
But in terms of the services, they weren't doing that much more for education than Mecklenburg County was.
Thank you for that. Any other commissioners want to add something? Commissioner Altman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. School Board Member Nunn, I think one of the things that we're trying to undertake to address this is standing up a really robust economic development program so that we can be a part of recruiting great new employers that will help increase our tax base. That's what we do in economic development. You know, how much are they going to invest? What's that going to do in terms of what it brings into the coffers? So, you know, we are very proactive on that front.
Thank you for that. Anyone else?
Yes.
Commissioner Altman, is that part of the investment income line item?
No.
No. Yeah.
That would result in additional property tax or sales tax, depending on
Where
what
would
they-
economic development land in the budget?
Well, from a revenue standpoint, it would come through on the property tax side.
Oh, yeah, got it, thank you.
No? Anyone else? Okay, well, I appreciate that discussion and the dialogue. David, thank you for the presentation. So the next couple of presentations, I'll turn over to Dr. Hill, and then following these two presentations, there is a joint presentation as well.
Thank you, Chair Terrell. Beth Thompson, Chief of Strategy and Innovation, will present the academic highlights from the 2023-24 school year, which is our last official data set. You will see our district has achieved several accomplishments, and we've celebrated them. However, we view last year as ground zero, as we were working to stabilize and standardize processes, procedures, and expectations. We have a lot of work to do, as outlined in the board's student outcomes-focused governance goals, and those goals are monitored every board meeting for at least 60 minutes. At this time, I will turn it over to Ms. Thompson to provide the report.
Good evening. My report this evening will be a synopsis of the broader, more detailed report that was presented to the media and public on September 4th, 2024, in alignment with the annual State of North Carolina data release. Access to that full presentation is available on the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools website at www.k12.org/data. Ongoing student outcomes-focused governance monitoring report are also on the website on the tab entitled Strategic Plan. Those reports, as Dr. Hill said, take place at every single Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools Board of Education meeting as a part of our goal monitoring. In this report, I will share the following: headlines regarding 23-24 student performance, student proficiency data, student growth data, and support for Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, including specific support for schools with the state-designated low-performing status. We'll then have opportunity for questions. So we'll start with what we call our headline results, the things we find significant and important for our community to be talking about. In 23-24, 146, that's 83.4% of Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools met or exceeded growth, the highest number in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools history. 33 Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools improved their school letter grades from 22-23 to 23-24. 108 Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools earned a school performance grade of an A, B, or C, an increase of 5 from the 22-23 school year. For the first time in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools history, more schools were removed from the state low-performing designation list than were added. Specifically, 19 schools no longer have a state low-performing designation. 17 different schools now do have a state low-performing designation. It should be noted here that school performance grades are designated by the state of North Carolina and are comprised of 80% student proficiency and 20% student growth. There was an increase in the 23-24 graduation rate to 84%, including significant increases in the graduation rates of Hispanic and multilingual learners. There were increases in grade level proficiency in math, science, and students at or above benchmark in K2 literacy. There were slight decreases in grade level proficiency in reading and English 2. There was a decrease in achievement gaps between white and Black and Hispanic student groups in K2 literacy, but gaps in achievement remain across racial, ethnic, specialized service, and economically disadvantaged and non-economically disadvantaged student groups in other content areas. This slide shows Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools' 23-24 performance in the first of the two areas that make up a school performance grade, student achievement, otherwise known as student proficiency on end-of-year assessments. Achievement tells us whether a student has reached the targeted performance level for that particular grade and content area or on a particular assessment for that school year. When you look at the first row on this chart entitled EOG Composite, you see that last year, student achievement on end-of-grade tests, the assessments taken by students in grades 3 through 8, increased in grade level proficiency, that's students earning a level 3, 4, or 5, and college and career readiness, students earning a level 4 or 5. When you look at the second row on the chart, entitled EOC Composite, you see that last year's student achievement on end-of-course tests, those are assessments taken by students who are taking high school courses, increased in grade level proficiency, again, students earning a level 3, 4, or 5, but decreased by 0.9 in college and career readiness, students earning a 4 or 5. In the remaining rows that are focused on specific content areas that make up those composite scores, you see that student achievement increased in math, science, high school math 1, and biology and grade level proficiency. Student achievement increased in math and science and college and career readiness. It should be noted that data related to high school Math 1 shown here reflects only students taking Math 1 in high school. We report it this way because this is the way the state reports in the state accountability model. End-of-year data that includes all students taking Math 1, middle and high school, are the following: 50% grade level proficient and 28.4% college and career readiness, an increase of 1.7 and 1% respectively. We also look at student performance by student groups. Student achievement in grades 3 through 8 increased in all state-tested areas, with the exception of the Hispanic student group and students with disabilities, specifically in the area of grade level proficiency. While the gains are celebrated, it should be noted that the achievement gap between the performance of white and Asian students and Black and Hispanic students is wide. We also analyze student performance by student group for our high school end-of-course assessments. These include biology, English 2, Math 1, and Math 3. Student achievement on end-of-course assessments by student group increased with economically disadvantaged students, EDS, shown here, and multilingual students, ML, as well as Black, Hispanic, and students with disabilities in the area of grade level proficiency. An additional area addressed in our strategic plan, but not reported by the state of North Carolina as a part of the state accountability model, is early literacy. All districts in the state of North Carolina administer an assessment called DIBELS, the Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills. We now have 3 years of student performance data on this assessment. Since the 21-22 school year, the gap between the performance of white students and Black students on the K2 DIBELS assessment has narrowed by 9.5. In the 21-22 school year, the gap was 30.1. In 22-23, the gap was 23.2, and last year the gap was 20.6, again decreasing by 9.5 over 2 years. Additionally, since the 21-22 school year, the gap between the performance of white students and Hispanic students on this same assessment has narrowed by 8. In the 21-22 school year, the gap was 40.9, 22-23, 33.6, and last year, 32.9. Let's be clear, we've just gotten started and these gaps need to be eliminated, not just narrowed. But these are promising results and provide inspiration for our continued work and efforts in the foundational skill of learning to read. The DIBELS assessment is not just administered to students in North Carolina, so there's an opportunity to compare our results not just to students in North Carolina, but also to students nationally. Charlotte-Mecklenburg School's kindergarten, first, and second grade students outperformed students nationally in all 3 grade levels by 9 in kindergarten, 6 in first grade, and 7 in second grade. Charlotte-Mecklenburg students also outperformed students across the state of North Carolina in kindergarten and second grade, and were just under the state average in first grade by 1. Now let's look at the other area that makes up the school performance grades, student growth on end-of-year assessments. Growth data tells us whether the student grew in comparison to other students who took the same assessment in the same year across the state, based on where the student started the school year and ended that school year. Growth tells us whether students made progress over the course of the year. In 23-24, 146 schools met or exceeded growth, and Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools ranked 20 out of 115 North Carolina districts in percentage of schools meeting or exceeding growth. 97 principals received state bonuses for school growth indices that were in the top 50% of all schools across the state of North Carolina. And when we look across content areas, as you can see here on the far right side of this chart, in the column entitled 23-24, Charlotte-Mecklenburg School students overall met or exceeded growth in every single content area in the 23-24 school year. Exceeding growth, not just meeting, exceeding growth in 7 out of 8 content areas. This means that students in Charlotte-Mecklenburg last year grew more relative to the students across the state than would have been expected for one school year. This student growth shown in the far right-hand column was an improvement over the 22-23 school year, shown here in the column directly to the left, notably in the areas of Math 1 and Math 3. And it's a significant improvement over the 21-22 school year and pre-pandemic in 18-19, years during which our district had some content areas in which students did not meet annual growth expectations compared to other students across the state. Across student groups and subject areas, you can see that in 22-23, there had been areas in which Black, Hispanic, economically disadvantaged, and students with disabilities student groups were not meeting growth. However, in 23-24, those same student groups met or exceeded growth in reading, math, and science. To be clear, the student groups highlighted in purple on this slide moved from not meeting growth in multiple areas in 22-23 to meeting or exceeding growth in all areas in 23-24. This is important data because we know our ability to exceed growth year over year ultimately leads to an increase in student proficiency and a decrease in student achievement gaps between student groups. This data shows we are doing just that. And as we celebrate gains in the growth of those student groups, we still note areas for improvement in annual growth for this school year with our academically gifted and white student groups, and we are taking action. Finally, we have systems and structures in place to support all of our 186 Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools and supplemental support for our schools designated by the state of North Carolina as low performing. On the right-hand side of this slide, you see that in comparison to what is true for all schools, schools designated as low performing include additional indicators on their school improvement plans to address areas of needed focus for improvement, participate in monthly data support sessions relevant to their specific areas for growth, sessions with school leaders, and sessions with teacher teams in specific content areas called professional learning communities, and receive additional personalized professional development and coaching to be able to make quick instructional adjustments throughout the school year when needed. That concludes this presentation on 23-24 data results for Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. Please remember, all of this data, I'm going to do a shameless plug, and more is available on the Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools website. I'll now turn it over to Chair Jarrell to facilitate questions.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. I appreciate that. I suspect we're going to have a lot of questions. I'm going to start with Commissioner Griffin. I felt the heat on me.
No, just an easy question, Dr. Thompson. Thank you for your continued professionalism, and thank you for your presentation. Going back to the slide 23-24
Arthur, can you pull the mic to you, please?
Going back to the slide, doesn't have a number on it, but it says 23-24 headline results, overall achievement, where you have EOGs, EOC composites at the top. You said something about Math 1. This is high school, but you indicated a number for all Math 1 takers, and it's like, I didn't get that number.
Sure. So that number for all students is the following: 50% grade level proficient and 28.4% college and career ready. And that's an increase of 1.7 and 1% respectively over the previous year.
The slide you just finished on low performing, are there specific areas? I think last time I looked a week ago, it was like 56 schools, 50-something. Are there any consistencies? Are they all over the place? Is it reading? Is it, what are the areas that you have to make a few points? Because usually low performing, you're just a few points off and you just have to do some things in a particular area. Can you summarize what those particular areas are that if you got a little boost, you'd reduce it even more than just by 2 schools, but maybe a dozen schools?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. I think we've learned two things around the state designation for our low-performing schools. One, to your point, is that not every low-performing school has that designation for the same reason, and therefore.
That's not for you. That's
Okay,
for-
got it.
You keep going.
That not every, and so for some schools that might be reading, for some schools it might be math, for some schools it might be science, in some areas it's proficiency, and in some areas that it's growth. We do recognize that reading across the district continues, particularly in the middle grades, to be an area that we want to focus on. But the other thing we've learned about low-performing schools and that designation is that not more schools need support than just our schools who have the designation of low-performing. And you saw that in that data. Our efforts, when targeted only at low-performing schools, can be successful in removing students from that designation, but then 17 new schools become low-performing. So our service delivery model, under the leadership of Dr. Balknight, our Deputy Superintendent, has been more of a multi-tiered system of support, or what we call an MTSS model, in which we're providing core support to every single school. So the things on the left-hand side of that chart, we're going to do for all 186 schools. And we've changed the way we're organized to do that. We've moved from learning communities to school performance areas. Those school performance areas have a smaller support to number of school ratio and are also organized by grade level so that it's almost a cohort or a community of learning for all middle schools, all high schools, and all elementary schools. And then when schools need additional support, we'd call that like supplemental or intensive support, then those people, those assistant superintendents, executive directors, and specialists are poised to be able to help and support that school, any school needing help in a quick and nimble way, but always prioritizing schools that have that low-performing designation. So we're both providing support to schools that have that low-performing designation, but we're not excluding the remainder of our schools to be able to be sure we're able to respond quickly.
Thank you. Commissioner Rodriguez-McDowell.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm struggling with the designation, and this is probably the dumbest question you've ever heard. The GLP versus CCR, is that grade levels that are different, or like how are those kids being separated? I don't understand the columns.
Sure. So GLP stands for grade level proficiency, and it would represent any student who earned a 3, 4, or a 5 on an end of grade assessment. That is the calculation that the state uses as a part of the school performance grade. So when we say a school has an A, B, or a C, then they're using grade level proficiency, students who earned a 3, 4, or a 5. College and career readiness, or CCR, is students who only earned a 4 or a 5. The state reports out on both of those things. Our goals are built around college and career readiness because we want to hold a really high bar for excellence for our students, but it is important to note the difference. It would be kind of similar to if you complete an assignment and we were to report out on students who got an A, B, or a C, that would be like grade level proficient. Students who got an A or a B might be college or career readiness. So it's just looking at different levels of performance of students.
So is it the same kids, though?
Same kids. Well, kids are either kids who are grade level proficient are also going to count in the college and career readiness percentage.
Okay. So the 4 and 5 are in both.
Are going to be in
categories.
GLP.
So,
That's exactly right.
yeah, that's what's throwing me here.
It's a little tricky.
All right, cool, thanks.
Sure. Hi.
Commissioner Meyer.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and I want to just note congratulations to CMS on the growth. I think it's wonderful, so I think that's something to celebrate. 2 questions. The end of course, everything you just talked about, all the student achievement, are we comparing ourselves to national statistics at all? And before my time is up, also, we always hear about 3rd grade, the end of 3rd grade, and I don't see anything about end of 3rd grade. Is that another whole statistic that you'll cover?
I can provide that information for you.
Okay.
I'll start with national statistics. So these assessments that are reported out in the state of North Carolina are assessments that are only given in North Carolina. So we can't compare performance on, for example, a North Carolina end of grade test because it's only given in North Carolina. The DIBELS assessment is different. It's technically not a part of the state accountability model, but we do have data, and the state will report at a high level around that data. And that's the reason why with DIBELS, I could say how we had compared nationally. Okay. There are assessments that our students take. The NAEP is one of them, and that's an assessment that is given nationally. And when those types of results come out, we are able to say how our students have performed against students across the country. And in fact, there will be new data coming out regarding those results very soon. And I may have in the appendix, and I'm certainly happy to provide for you, third grade data specifically. We had a goal in our previous iteration of goals around third grade reading performance, so that was something we were reporting out on consistently. This year, our goal 2 is on the performance of students in grades 3 through 8 on reading. And stay tuned, because tomorrow night is our first goal 2 SOFG monitoring report, and we'll have data for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so this is the order we'll go in. We'll go with Commissioner Townsend Ingram, Vice Chair Altman, and then Commissioner Leak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the report, and congratulations also, Dr. Hill, and the rest of your team. That's an awesome job. I always tell people I did 2 years on the inside within CMS, and I have a question with regard to the advanced placement and the correlation between that and the improvements. How are we doing with that? Because I know that a lot of parents and scholars complained that there wasn't enough advanced placement in schools where, were deemed low performing or didn't have certain curriculums. So how are we with that, and is there a correlation with the improvements?
Sure. So there is a minimum number of required advanced placement courses at all of our traditional high schools. And the courses, there are some courses that are offered at every single high school. There are some courses that high schools have choices around. That report out is a part of our Goal 4. It's one of the indicators for Goal 4 around post-secondary readiness. I think I included that in the appendix here. So when we talk about the ways we're measuring whether we are on track for our students to not just graduate with a diploma, but to graduate ready to be enrolled, enlisted, or employed, the number and percent of students who are engaging in higher education courses, including CPCC, UNCC, dual enrollment, AP, that would be the advanced placement, IB, International Baccalaureate, or Cambridge, is a part of what we'll be reporting out on. Our first report on Goal 4, I believe, if I remember correctly, it's the first report in February. I think that is February the 11th. Regarding the correlation, can you remind me the correlation to?
That and the improvements that you've seen, for instance, or lack of improvement, particularly in Black and minority students and Black and Latino students.
I'd be happy to pull that for you and to follow up.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Vice Chair Altman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I recall that it used to be that low-performing schools had basically like a 1.5 student. They were counted, like for every student, it was counted as 1.5 students, so that the ratios of, there would be more teachers per students to help a more challenging learning environment. So there were actually more resources going to those schools. Is that still the case? Is that framework still in place?
I think what you're referring to is weighted student staffing.
Yes.
To my knowledge and recollection, although there are other experts who will be able to support that and we can get you that answer, that was not exclusive necessarily to low-performing schools, but it was in correlation to the percentage of economically disadvantaged students at that school. So you could have a school that had a high percentage of students economically disadvantaged, but not low-performing. And we have many schools who fall into that category. There are supports for schools based on different designations, or for example, if a school has Title I funds that are supporting their efforts, that weighted student staffing specifically is no longer in play. It kind of goes back to that service delivery model I talked about earlier, though. What we want to make sure is that we have a standard across all 186 schools, that every single school has a core level of support. And then students who have, and schools who have additional needs based on their economically disadvantaged percentage are then able to have additional supports using federal funds.
Thank you. I would like to ask a question, but before my time runs out, I want to do a public service announcement. I would like to use my opportunity with the school board and staff here to say that in my personal experience, I have been overwhelmed by what high school debate has been able to do for kids. May I finish this statement really fast? And its ability to unlock doors for them and to train their minds to become like the most formidable citizens and apply to college and so forth. And I just respectfully ask anything that the CMS can do to ensure that the teachers that are giving so much of their time, as much as any coach, any athletic coach and more, that they get the same sort of support financially that coaches are getting. And I'll follow up with my question next go round if we have it. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's probably not going to be another go-round.
Okay, then I'll send
You have to
a.
write it down.
You can send it along.
Send it.
Yeah.
So it looks, we'll go with Commissioner Leek, then Commissioner Dunlap. I'll try to defer some time for you, though.
Am I next?
Yes,
Thank
Commissioner
you.
Leek, thank you.
Let me first thank you for your presentation. As we talk about national certified teachers, where are they located, in what schools and what districts? That's number one. Number two, low-performing schools in District 2 outnumbered any across the district. So where are low-performing schools today based upon where they were 2 years ago?
I'll need to pull both of those data points for you. They're not a part of this presentation, but I'd be happy to pull those for where nationally board certified teachers and how many we have, and then also specifically by district where low performing schools are located.
Right, but where are your national certified teachers actually teaching, not administrators, but as teachers?
Got it.
Because they make 12.5% more than the average teacher. Am I right?
That sounds correct. I would need to check on that, but I've written all of that down. I know our folks have got that typed as well, and we'd be happy to get those responses
And
to you.
thank you so much.
Absolutely, thank you.
Commissioner Dunlap.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think given where we were 3 years ago, this is an excellent opportunity to commend CMS Superintendent and her staff for the improvements that have been made. We talk about why we support the budget to the levels that we do, and we talk about the expectations we have when we fund CMS. I think if you look at the last 2 to 3 years, we are getting the results that we expected to get with the funding that we appropriated. And so, given the results of the data that's been presented here today, I think this community should thank CMS for moving in the direction that they're moving. It hadn't always been this way. We hadn't always seen these positive gains. We have a superintendent that I'm certain is committed to the community. We hadn't seen that in a long time. So I think this is an opportunity for all of us to commend CMS staff and its superintendent for their efforts in improving student achievement in Mecklenburg County.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. It's nice to see positive results. And so when there's conversation about weighted student staffing and additional resources and teaching assistants, I'd like to know what you and the superintendent attribute to these, like what are the top 2 to 3 things that you attribute this success to?
I think the first is, and I know I sound like a broken record, but I do think it's going back to looking at what our service delivery model is and what the standard is that we desire for every student who attends Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, all 141,000 plus. That regardless of which school you attend, that you can count on having an educational and social emotional experience that's going to be a positive one. And that we as a district, as leadership, are clear on exactly what that looks like, sounds like, and feels like for every single student. And then we engage in a service delivery model in which we have support and pressure, but support, healthy pressure, to make sure that that becomes a reality for every single student. So we're not saying we're going to focus just on these 10 schools. We're not saying we're going to focus on these 80 schools. We're not putting schools into different buckets. We're saying across the board, when we come together, for example, at a leadership meeting, all 186 leaders and teams are working on the same work, but to solve the problems of their particular schools and their particular context. And I think that is making a tremendous difference in being able to meet the needs of schools as they are, but also making sure that we see gains like the ones here, and that across the board, we have students exceeding growth standards across the state, from what's across the state.
So my understanding of that is clear expectations for all, clarity, service delivery, and healthy pressure helping you with that.
You said that very well. And support, pressure and support, right, Dr. Hill?
So it's nice to hear that. And, I don't know if you still have the Paideia magnet, but for Commissioner Altman's comments, the Paideia magnet was a healthy start for a healthy foundation for debate.
Thank you, Commissioner Powell. Commissioner Griffin, quick follow-up, and then Commissioner Altman, very quick. We gotta move on.
Goal 4, you had some indicators, and that you're not going to work on that until February the 11th?
We're reporting on it for the first
Reporting.
time. Yes, sir.
The question I have, number 31 percentile for ASVAB, that's the very bottom of the totem pole. ASVAB is a national norm. The highest score is 99 percentile. 50 is average. So I would hope that Superintendent Hill, that you would take a look at that, maybe move that up from maybe 31 percentile to 50 percentile.
Vice Chair Altman.
Thank you. I would like to invite you and challenge you to tell us now or later the top 3 things that we could help you around CTE. I feel that's so important, career and technical education, and I believe it's a community type of ecosystem. And so how can we, with industry and local government, help with parents and principals to maximize outcomes there?
I'm thrilled that you asked that question. And I want to make sure that I consult with Dr. Balknight before answering that question, but we'll make sure to follow up with you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just a point of clarity, if that's possible.
Please.
I know Commissioner Leak wanted to know the breakdown between the districts. I just want to make sure we knew which districts we're talking about. We're referring to county commission districts, or we're talking about school board districts, because they differ some, just for point of clarity.
Commissioner League, are you talking about county commissioner districts in your request or school board?
District 2.
So let's just say county commissioner districts. If there's a significant difference somewhere, just point that out for us.
Exactly.
But let's just go with commissioner districts.
So we'll know where we are
That's right.
based upon the district.
I thought there were some questions on our end and questions on, can we both receive the answers? We both receive all the answers and information?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I see staff saying,
Yes.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Hill, the next presentation.
Thank you. We're extremely grateful to the Mecklenburg County Board of County Commissioners and the voters of Mecklenburg County for voting yes to our 2017 and 2023 bond. We are proud of our partnership and transparent reporting on the progress of our bond projects. Mr. Ivy, Chief Operations Officer, will give that report. Immediately following his report, Kelly Klutz, Chief Financial Officer, will provide an update on our budget processes. Our budget planning cycle begins in the fall and extends until the adoption of the state budget. We are very early in the process of shaping our recommendation that we will take to the Board of Education. Today, we are providing you with a high-level overview of the processes we are using to ensure alignment, maximize efficiency, maximize all revenue sources, identify trade-offs, and reduce risk. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Ivy and immediately following Ms. Klutz for their reports.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Good evening. I'm Tim Ivy, Chief Operations Officer, and I'm excited to be able to give you a brief update on the progress of the 2017 and 2023 bonds. Along with excuse me for 1 second. This is the dashboard for the 2017 bond. It, along with the complete list of projects, can be found at cmsbondconstruction.com. As you can see, we have completed 27 of the 29 projects and are extremely close to completing the final 2 projects. The bond dashboard provides complete insight into our financials, completion schedule, and the location of the bond projects. Along with the dashboard, each of the bond projects has its own individual information sheet. This is the project sheet for Bruns Avenue Elementary School. As previously mentioned, the 2017 bond has 29 projects, and at the start of the second semester, 28 will be completed with the opening of the new building at South Meck High School. The remaining project will be the completion of the parking lot at Bruns Avenue Elementary School. Now let's take a quick look at the 2023 bond. Here's a list of all projects approved in the 23 bond referendum. As a reminder, there are 30 bond projects that affect 35 sites in the district. Please note that there is one project that was approved that is not a school. That is the design only of the West Regional Athletic Facility. Before looking further into the 2023 bond, I would like to review the items that have to be considered before selecting a project order. These include available cash flow with capital funding, school capacity, condition of current school facilities, logistics surrounding construction, and being good stewards of the bond. I also want to note that the annual capital ordinance that is adopted each year by the Mecklenburg County government is used to support our projects as well as other entities with ongoing and new projects. Now let's look at the estimated timeline for the 2023 bond projects that have been approved through the adoption of the 2023 and 2024 annual capital ordinances. As you can see, 16 of the 30 projects have been approved and 12 are currently in progress, with us selecting the architects for the remaining 4 projects. Here's a dashboard for the 23 bond. It can also be found on our bond website and is in the same format as the 2017 bond. Just like the 2017 bond, each of the 23 bond projects has its own individual information sheet. This is the project sheet for New Middle School Number 1 South. This is the project sheet for North Mecklenburg High School on-site replacement. And this is the project sheet for the new Second Ward High School. Each of our bond sites also have live cameras so that anyone interested can observe the construction process in real time. And here's a screenshot of the construction at Northwest School of the Arts. And I want to take a real quick look at the time lapse for the construction at Bruns Avenue. This is the entire project, which you can see in approximately 20 seconds, as well as viewing the live camera of the progress going on there at Bruns Avenue Elementary School. We are always looking for innovative ways to engage our community in the bond process and appreciate our partnership with Mecklenburg County. We also encourage you to use the included QR code to follow the 2017 and 2023 bond on social media and on our website. I'll now turn it over to our Chief Financial Officer, Kelly Kletz.
Thank you and good afternoon. Today we'll discuss our 25-26 budget process, the alignment of our budget to our strategic plan, as well as our new 5-year financial forecasting approach to ensure that we have long-term sustainability, and how we can continue to collaborate to serve students and families of Mecklenburg County. The budget cycle begins with the Board of Education setting the SOFG goals and identifying what is important to the district. From there, the superintendent determines how we accomplish those goals, a process that's supported by department annual plans. Chiefs, department heads, and support staff play a critical role in that work. They are responsible for planning, resourcing, and executing the initiatives needed to achieve the goals. The chiefs also support the superintendent by ensuring that their efforts align with the strategic plan and are reflected in the superintendent's budget recommendation. The recommendation is designed to confidently support the accomplishment of the district's goals while maintaining alignment with a broader strategic vision. As we prepare for the upcoming fiscal year, we've started identifying our needs, including $10 million for state-driven pay increases, $10 million for Phase 2 of the compensation study, as well as $8 million to increase teacher supplements, with strategic alignment needs still under review in the purple column. You may note as you look at the chart that the overwhelming majority of the items identified are simply to keep the lights on and to prevent diminishing compensation for our employees. The list you see here is not our ask. This is why. The work to identify the needs that align with the strategic plan goals is still ongoing. The work for searching for other funding sources is still ongoing. The work of identifying trade-offs and evaluating the risk of those is still ongoing. The work of scrubbing all of our budgets, all funds, all funding sources, not just local, is still ongoing. The work will be done by March, and upon completion of that work, we will prioritize those needs. Next, the superintendent will present her budget to the Board of Education. Once the Board of Education approves the superintendent's recommendation, we will present that information to you, the commissioners. This meeting is scheduled in May. CMS recognizes the importance of looking beyond the next fiscal year to ensure sustainable financial planning. Without a forward-looking approach, CMS risks remaining in a cycle of reacting to unanticipated expenses. To address this, we are incorporating future-focused planning with our department annual plans, proactively identifying potential costs the district may face. The 5-year financial forecast is aligned with the 5 years of the strategic plan. So similar to the slide that we just talked about before, this is not our ask. This is an example of the planning and the strategic work that we are doing within CMS. Here we will introduce the process that we are using to ensure alignment. Our 24-29 strategic plan serves as the foundation for all of our budget requests. The plan is rooted in student outcomes and is guided by the 4 pillars: academic, people, operational, and engagement. We took all 4 pillars of excellence and developed priorities with each pillar that identified what we need to do as a district in order to accomplish these goals. This slide shows one of the tools that we're using to ensure that we are aligned. We are looking vertically as divisions and horizontally as an organization and a district. First, we've identified our needs that are aligned with the department annual plans. Next, we review the possible trade-offs within the current budget, as well as we review the risk associated with any of those trade-offs. This is done at every division level with the superintendent and the CFO. We will not ask you for anything that is not absolutely necessary after looking at the trade-offs and the risk. We are not coming for anything that has not gone through this process first. Oops, I missed a slide, sorry. Okay. So circling back to this slide, we showed you that we had not finalized our strategic needs. Now we're going through the process. After we've gone through this process, we will be able to update this slide. So the purple block will be the amount that we determine to align with our strategic priorities and needs. Again, no request will come to you unless it's been through the process of reviewing the potential trade-offs and evaluating those risks. CMS is not a taxing entity, therefore we have no control of our revenue. It's important for you to know the funding sources of our operational budget. Here you can see that 53.7% of our operating budget is state, 33.1% is local, and the one that's getting the most attention right now is our federal budget at 8.7%. Our budget planning cycle is a thorough and collaborative process that begins in the fall and extends through the adoption of the state budget. This is a long and deliberate process designed to ensure transparency, inclusivity, and the alignment of our district's goals. We engage with a wide range of stakeholders, those doing the critical work in our schools and our departments, and those who will directly benefit from these efforts, including our students, our families, and our community members. Through engagement sessions and ongoing collaboration, we work to build a budget that reflects the needs and the priorities of our district while maintaining accountability and fiscal responsibility. Chair Jarrell, this completes my report. Thank you for the opportunity to share today.
This time, County Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Dunlap?
Yeah, I simply wanted to make sure that we are on time and under budget. I couldn't add fast enough to add those numbers, but as it relates to the bond, I just want to make sure that we got what it takes.
For the 2017 bond, we were on time and under budget. And we were able to work with staff to reallocate those funds to meet other capital needs.
Okay,
So that is correct, sir.
thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, Commissioners? Commissioner Leek?
Thank you. Let me put your attention to Northwest School of the Arts. Can I speak to that just a minute? That school has been patchwork for the last 50 years. And for us not to put it on here as one of the first choices to get completed, I have a problem. And I'm sure the community, not your fault now, cause it's probably older than you are. But we need to have a new school that will meet the needs of our demands when it comes to the arts. So I'm asking us, why is it on the lower list? That's number one. So reconsider that, School of Performing Arts. And the next is.
Commissioner
Philip
Leek,
O'Barry.
give me 1 second because I want to clarify one thing.
All right, thank you.
When we're talking about reconsideration, we want to make sure that we're not making a request for the board or on behalf of the board. It's an
This is
individual
Bill Malik.
It's an individual commissioner making a request, so I want to be really, really careful about how we're going down this road. You can please respond, but again, this is not a request that's coming from the board, and I think we.
I didn't say that.
You didn't say that, but I need to make sure, well, you did say that, excuse me. You did say that you wanted it to be reconsidered. And so that has to come from the board for reconsideration. Mr. Attorney, please let me know if we're in bounds or if I'm out of bounds on that.
So you're saying as an individual citizen, I can't make that request?
No.
As an individual citizen, you can, but he's speaking as to the board.
I can't hear you.
As an individual citizen, you can, Commissioner Leek, but he's speaking as to the board right now.
I'm speaking as a board member.
Right.
All right, so do not disregard that.
Commissioner Lee, I just want to direct your attention to this slide. So you'll see that actually Northwest, we agree with you. Northwest School of the Arts is one of the more complicated projects that we have, but you'll notice that it was in our first tranche of projects. So it is in the process of being addressed, which is why that's one of the photographs that we showed you of the ongoing construction. So we've already begun work at Northwest School of the Arts, and it's slated to be one of the first to finish.
You say you've already started work?
Yes, ma'am.
Adding on to?
Yes.
You need a new building.
Yes, that's the construction that's currently underway right now.
Did you get my drift?
There are new buildings being added on that same property. Yes, ma'am.
But that's the problem. You add a classroom, and I don't want to get into it negatively. And I don't want it to be perceived as being negative. But the general public keeps saying to us, when are you going to do a better job with that school? You add a classroom here and a bathroom there. So that's all I'm saying, Madam Chairman. So maybe you and I need to sit down and talk about it. And Philip O'Barry was built for the very thing you're talking about, adding on to it, to another complex. So I'll speak to it, if that's all right. Just because of my district and what is said to me, I'm representing the people of District 2, and they have said these things to me in conferences and in meetings. Northwest and also Philip O'Berry.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you so
And
much.
thank you so much, sir,
Thank you, ma'am.
for the respect.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for the presentation. I just have one simple question on your fiscal year 25 operating budget pie graph. You mentioned federal government, you said, which is in a lot of news right now, or can you explain?
Just getting more attention with the political climate and the change and potentially changing the way that we get our federal dollars.
Okay.
Specifically, the large allocations, Title I.
Right. That was what I was actually heading for. And then, so do you also, with the state, are you thinking that maybe you'll get less money as well from the state?
It's true.
Maybe I'm in denial. I'm hoping not.
Because it's going to come to the county.
Right.
Yeah, okay, that's all, thank you.
Thank you. Other commissioners? No? I do have something. Can you go to the slide that, I think it was your slide, Tim, where you had MWBE?
Say what?
You don't have anything?
I don't have.
Okay. I'll make sure. I'm about to jump in front of you there. I'm sorry. The MWBE, I think that was it. Anyway, you have another slide that I wanted to point out because our board, MWBE, there it is right there. MWBE participation has been really, really important to us. And I do think, again, to kind of follow up on where Commissioner Dunlap is in giving credit where credit is due, I really, really appreciate, and I think we as a board, I know we as a board appreciate that focus and what we see reflected in your numbers on MWBE. It's really, really important. I think as we work together, this is a real area where we can really, really produce additional outcomes that go beyond just what we do as individual boards. I would really love to be able to see if we combined our projects, the county and CMS, what those MWBE numbers really, really look like. So when you take the data in aggregate, as far as the amount of spend, and then you break it down in a category and just see that combined amount, I think it would be significant, and I think it would be really telling to show, the things that we do, maybe not necessarily same policy-wise, but the things that we're doing to provide impact in the community. But I think those numbers are outstanding, and full transparency, at our retreat last year, I didn't really believe those numbers, to be honest with you. Not as, I didn't know if it was baked kind of funny, but the more I dig in, I think, it definitely holds true. So I definitely wanted to lift that up.
17? Yeah, I was going to say that's better. Other way.
Yep, there you go. Yeah, it was 40.
That's it.
Yeah, I still can't see it with my glasses, but it was 40-something%.
45.
45.
It was 45.76%.
There we go.
And WBE was 22.41%, and MBE was 19.73%.
Yeah, I think that's outstanding. Commissioner Rodriguez-McDowell.
Mr. Chairman, are you trying to combine our numbers with their numbers to make our numbers look better? With the county, is that kind of what you're getting at? I'm
No.
just trying to understand why they'd want to combine with
No,
us.
I'll tell you,
Want to show
when I look
total
at, thank you, Commissioner Dunlap. When you look at total impact from a public perspective, I think it's important to show what we're doing, the impact that we can make. So when I say that, I guess in my mind, I need to clarify. You would have your numbers there. I'd like, our numbers would be side by side, and then we can take a combination of that aggregate. But just having the staffs kind of work together and put that slide together, I think would be pretty cool for the community to see.
Absolutely. We'll be glad to work with you on that.
Thank you. I think that's all the questions from commissioners. Commissioner Griffin?
Yeah, well, leave me alone, will you?
Oh, how much time?
All right, you want to hear from me?
Time. All right. So we've seen a lot of presentations right now. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to ask everybody to reconvene at 7 o'clock on the dot. So you've got 8 minutes.
I need you, man.
You got 'em?
About 60. I get.
Did you understand what I was saying?
Yeah. No.
All right.
Yeah, there's a fine line.
I don't get that. See, I wear different colors.
All right, we need everybody to start making their way back to their seats, please.
It's right across the bridge. It was this big. Big as this place. Call me, I'll take you.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Okay, your number before I go. Dr. Williams. Sit down.
So before you get started, I do want to say that Commissioner Leak and I were a little disconnected. I hate that we were disconnected. I apologize if we were disconnected, but I'm doing my job up here, and I'll continue to do my job, but I'll do it respectfully. And
Thank you.
so if you felt disrespected, I apologize publicly. Now, moving forward, the next presentation is, what do we have?
Pre-K programming.
Okay, this is a joint presentation with CMS staff and county staff on MEC Pre-K. So we'll let you go ahead and start.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Teresa Beam, and I am the Executive Director of Pre-K Programs for Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, where we have Bright Beginnings classrooms as well as NC Pre-K. And thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you the publicly funded pre-K programs in Mecklenburg County, which includes Bright Beginnings, NC Pre-K, Head Start, and MEC Pre-K.
Thank you, Teresa, and thank you, everybody, for having us here tonight. My name is Tim Gibbons. I'm with Mecklenburg County. I'm the program director for our early childhood initiatives. So as Teresa mentioned, helping work with our partners at Smart Start to administer the MEC Pre-K program.
Good afternoon. I'm Melissa Botnick, Deputy Superintendent. I will be here to support with any questions that you may have at the end. Thank you.
So starting real quick, I think our focus for today in our limited time, we wanted to try to, as quickly as we could, address sort of two key questions I think we consistently get with our pre-K programs. I think one is the misconception that people ask is, are these programs just babysitting? And the second is, how do you know if these programs are having any impact? And before we dive into the specifics of the story that we want to talk about for tonight, I just wanted to take a step back from a high level and just appreciate the collaboration that we have had with our partners at CMS, with our partners at Smart Start, and of course our childcare providers across the community. I don't have time to read through everything up here, but through these collaborative efforts the last few years, joint professional developments to bring all of our teachers together. We have a wider footprint than we've ever had across the county geographically with our reach. We are enrolling more children than we ever have before in these pre-K programs. We've got a more diverse group of children than we've ever had before. Through these efforts, it's being recognized nationally. Through the City Health Initiative, one of their key topics is high-quality, accessible pre-K. And Charlotte-Mecklenburg County is one of only 27 major metro U.S. Areas in the U.S. to receive a gold medal in that rating system there.
So the following slides represent a description of the publicly funded pre-K programs in Mecklenburg County, their requirements, and this current state of the enrollment for those programs. The identified administrators of the programs are noted in the first column under the program name. It is also noted that the only program that isn't filled right now is the NC Pre-K program, which is located at the bottom in this 85% field. So when we think about our pre-K program, our student outcome goal for CMS is to increase the percentage of K-2 students that are at or above benchmark in early childhood measured by the DIBELS. And the pre-K program developed WIGs, the widely important goals that align with the district's Goal 1. While analyzing our teaching strategies goal data from the 2023-24 school year, we found that students were significantly lower in literacy skills. Therefore, we had a focus on literacy early learning that was mandated by the state of North Carolina that talked about the science of reading. All of our teachers participated in that training, and they also learned how to embed those practices in their daily activities. We identified an opportunity to focus on language skills growth this year. Therefore, our coaches planned for oral language development sessions to present to all teachers this year. In addition, we analyzed the DIBELS data from last year to see where we had gaps and where we needed to grow. Leadership suggested we implement the Heggerty phonemic awareness approach, which will begin at the end of this month. Our teachers are actually going through training as we speak to try to implement beginning of February 1st. So just to give you a little bit of information about how we address language and literacy, if you were to walk into any of our classrooms, as Tim said, we are not babysitters. Well, none of our teachers have ever sat on a baby, but we are early childhood professionals. We are early childhood professionals, and one of the things that we say is the pre-K way. The pre-K way is excellence in everything that we do, so that we are data-driven. The curriculum is comprised of developmentally appropriate activities to develop the whole child: numeracy, language, art, physical, science, and social emotional skills. The daily components provide a way for teachers to integrate these domains while the children are playing. Play is a child's work, but it's intentional play. There are questions that the teachers are asking to engage them in higher level thinking. Literacy and language is embedded in all throughout our classrooms on a daily basis, and it's integrated naturally. It's a natural progression. Things are labeled in the classroom in English and in Spanish. Books in a variety of language. There's lots of questions that teachers are asking children throughout the day. So you'll see we have a direct instruction that we use throughout the day, and there are two small groups that we provide differentiated instruction. And you're thinking, well, how do we do that? We assess our children to know where they are. We have to know where they are in order to teach them the next skill level. So we start with the question of the day. We have mighty minutes, read aloud, and then independent center rotations. And that, for us, is learning centers. There's a math center, there's a science area, there's a block area, there's a literacy area, there's a writing area, there's an art area. So if you go in any classroom, you should be able to see this direct instruction on literacy. The teaching strategies, the assessment of the whole child. We use Teaching Strategies Gold, and I'm not going to read this verbatim, but this slide describes some of the developmental domains that we have in our classrooms, and these domains are assessed by teachers every day. We observe children while they play, we document what they're doing, and then we group them based on their skill level. The data is collected over 3 trimesters, and this information is used to inform instruction, is used to share with parents, and to keep them informed about their child's growth and development. These domains that are listed here above allow us to foster the whole child based on research-based practices.
So how do we know if what we're doing is making any impact? We don't want to just rely on saying, we can see the light in a child's eyes. We want to back that up with data to, like Teresa said, inform our instruction, inform our professional development, but also to ensure that we have accountability in place in terms of what we're doing. So again, I'm not going to read through all 3 of these assessments in specific detail here, but these are just 3 of the assessments we use, and the 3 most focused on early literacy and language. So we are going through and measuring very specific early literacy skills. And those types of skills that we're measuring are directly correlated, as we're going to walk through in a second, to what children are being assessed on when they enter kindergarten. So getting to that question of kindergarten readiness, which then also directly ties to that student outcome goal number 1 that the district has in terms of K-2 early literacy. So the real theme that we want to emphasize is we're very intentional in what we're doing, we're very data-driven with what our teams are doing, and we're really trying to have that backwards planning and alignment to ensure that we're thinking about this from a very strategic perspective. So all of those, that's on the previous slide, those 3 assessments, and we have several others that we use in pre-K, that's all data that we can provide in any form or fashion. We can slice and dice it, we can disaggregate it, we can share all that when there's any questions. And I think we have made that available to many of you either upon request or in regular presentations. But I know the follow-up question generally becomes well, that's great in pre-K, but if the goal is to prepare these children beyond then, what happens when they get to CMS and kindergarten, and how are they performing? And so when we talk about this concept of kindergarten readiness, I think we need to start and anchor ourselves into what the children are being assessed on today when they enter into a kindergarten classroom. So when children are coming through the school system at CMS, there are 2 assessments that are mandated by the state that they're being assessed on. The first, starting to the right side of the slide here, is the North Carolina Early Learning Inventory. And that is the same assessment that Teresa just mentioned that we use in pre-K called TS Gold. So it's a formative, it's an observational assessment that teachers are administering over the first 60 days that children are in the classroom. And really the purpose of that assessment is not so much to provide point in time like diagnostic benchmark data, but to get a sense where students are to make sure that instruction can be tailored appropriately to their needs as they move through kindergarten and the remainder of the year. The other, we've already heard previously that the district has included in their student outcome goal number 1, the DIBELS assessment, which is focused on very specific early literacy skills. And so this is a diagnostic teacher administered tool that provides us that benchmarking data that we saw previously, that not only against national benchmarks, but also against state benchmarks as well. So when we talk about this story and this idea of kindergarten readiness, I think the first thing we just have to make sure we're clear about is what are we measuring or what is available to us today. And so when we talk about what's available for us today in terms of benchmarking against very specific things, that DIBELS data on early literacy is the best data that is available for us and is publicly available to us right now. And we have been working for the last 2 school years with our partners at CMS. They have been matching all of our MEC pre-K graduates to their kindergarten rosters, and they are able to tell us data about how not just our MEC pre-K students, but all public pre-K students are performing as they go through kindergarten and move beyond. So just to kind of hammer home that point here about the alignment across what we're doing. So when children enter into kindergarten, starting on the far left here, these are the subtests on that DIBELS literacy assessment about the specific skills. So again, if we're talking about what does a kindergarten-ready child look like, what should they be expected to be able to do? And these 3 skills here, letter naming fluencies, recognizing letter sounds, and then what we call phoneme segmentation fluency is what they are being assessed on. And at the very far right of this table over there is the benchmark numbers that the DIBELS assessment has for them about what their performance should be to be on benchmark. So for letter naming fluency, it's can children, when they enter kindergarten, name 25 plus letters as they're presented to them over a certain period of time. But you can see our first 2 columns here that are in red, these are assessments that we administer in pre-K, and they're measuring the exact same skills. So again, really wanting to highlight that the instruction that Teresa talked about is directly aligned to the skill sets that we're trying to build with our children and that we are assessing in pre-K, and they directly connect to those skill sets that are being measured when they enter into kindergarten and are directly connecting to what the district is measuring in their student outcome goals. So just really trying to emphasize that point that this backwards mapping, alignment, and data sharing is being done on an annual basis across all of our programs. And we'll wrap it up here with actual data here.
Thank you, Tim. So before I dig into the data on this slide, I want to note the following. Each grade level within this early literacy goal has its own interim measure. This measure is based on the historical performance of a particular grade level related to the overall goal. So while the overall 5-year goal is that 91% of K-2 students are at or above school level benchmark by the end of 2029, the interim measure for kindergarten students specifically, our first interim measure, our goal is 97%. The annual target for kindergarten students this year is 81%. Note that this year's target for kindergarten students is higher than this year's target for all K-2 students combined, and that will be the column on the far right. Across the 9,237 Mecklenburg County Schools kindergarten students assessed at the beginning of the year, 42.6 of those are at or above benchmark at the beginning of the year. That is a decrease of 1.3 over the beginning of the year performance of kindergarten students for the 23-24 school year, and an increase of 6.4 over the beginning of the year performance of kindergarten students for the 22-23 school year. So our kindergarten students entered this year below where they entered last year. We have to help students progress more this year than last year. On the pre-K graph to the right, our current data shows that 49% of the students, 2,274, who attended any one of our publicly pre-K programs, Head Start, Bright Beginnings, in MEC Pre-K, NC Pre-K, for the 23-24 school year, scored at or above benchmarks during the 24-25 school year that just passed, which is phenomenal, measured by Dibbles. These students represent only a portion of kindergarten students that come to us in CMS.
So just to kind of, sorry, if we could quickly just kind of put a bow on this here. The numbers that we're showing on the right-hand side here for all pre-K graduates, so this is the beginning of the year assessment. So this is what it looks like when children come in. And I think what we wanted to highlight is in aggregate, our students who are graduating from our public pre-K programs, we can debate the level that they're at in aggregate now, because we can always strive to do better, but they are coming in and they are scoring higher than children who did not attend public pre-K. That's what we're trying to emphasize here. So our children that are coming in are more prepared than our children who have not attended public pre-K. So as we move forward and we look at further collaboration, there's a number of things that we could highlight that we're working on right now. Continuing to partner with one another in terms of improving outreach and enrollments. Even though enrollment continues to rise year over year, we want to scoop up as many children as possible to make sure there isn't one single empty seat across the county. And also want to continue to find ways to ensure families can get into our programs more easily. Whether that's more of a universal application, a centralized intake model, but finding ways to make sure that it's easier for families to navigate that landscape.
And we also talked about structuring our programs across the board, publicly funded programs, that we do a gap analysis to find out what are we doing within each program for curriculum, formative assessment, parent engagement, and then that transition to kindergarten. So regardless of what program a child is enrolled in, everyone across the board is doing the same thing. So it doesn't matter if a child leaves Head Start to come to CMS or leaves CMS to go to Head Start and MEC Pre-K because they've moved. That continuum is there, and the expectation to implement the curriculum to fidelity is there. We also talked about a reciprocal data sharing agreement with the county. CMS has an agreement with the county that we share our data with MEC Pre-K, but we would like to also have information from MEC Pre-K to share with us on the CMS side of the house for Pre-K to help us with planning. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Chair Jarrell to facilitate any questions you may have.
Presentation, and then just so everybody's aware, both boards will ask questions on this round. We'll start with Board of Education when it comes time, and then we'll go with commissioners. But Dr. Balknight, we'll hear your presentation first.
We are just answering questions on this joint presentation.
You don't have a separate?
No, I do not.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you had a separate presentation.
No,
Excuse
sir.
me.
Thank
Okay. Chair Sneed?
Board members, I recognize board member Shipp.
Yes, I saw where you talked about enrollment, and that's so important, and that you're filling seats. But I'm concerned about how early and how quickly, because many times, being a former pre-K person, many times they're not there at the beginning of the year. You're not getting them in the classroom early. So what are you looking at for that? And I know you mentioned the application process and the time it takes. So that's a concern when the teachers don't have the children at the beginning of the program.
I think I can speak to what we have tried to do together. We look at the parents that have applied for MEC Pre-K and the parents that have applied for CMS, and look for any overlaps. We have found over a couple of years ago, it was like 500 children left one program or another because they thought, oh, they were in CMS Pre-K, or they thought that they were in MEC Pre-K, which allowed for that gap. We are doing extensive marketing now to market our pre-K program with our communications department. We have some wonderful, wonderful videos out there on social media. And we're also trying to get the word out more by working collaboratively with MEC Pre-K. So we do know that we have certain pockets of our community where families typically apply for pre-K late in the year. Our applications for CMS Pre-K opened the 1st of December. Within the first week, we had over 700 applications. So we have pockets of the community that apply early. We have pockets of the community that applies a little later in the year. So we're trying to get the word out to the pockets of the community where families typically apply later and target those families with some of our marketing and advertising.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Leak.
Thank you. We must never forget those who help us across. A young man named Fuller, who chaired this board, came up with the idea and pushed it forward. So I hope that we will keep him in remembrance historically for this, for all children in this community. And as we, as members of the community, talk about and see children, we advocate for the program, that it is best that we start our children early with education.
Yes, ma'am.
And I want to commend each of you for your presentation. Excellente. And if I had a baby, I'd give you my baby, okay?
And we will take your baby, too. Thank you.
But again, thank you so much for your presentation and what you're doing with and for our children.
Thank you, Commissioner Leak. Board Member Monterey Duval.
This is an exciting topic for me because my son's a kindergartner, and so I have a few questions. I'm going to do it Commissioner Laura Meyer style. Are we using CMS educators to inform your curriculum? I'm kind of biased. We have amazing teachers. How are we marketing CMS in MEC Pre-K to ensure that, you know, the population's going to our schools? And then, I mean, as a parent, the 49% beginning of year, that's a big deal. And so, you know, how do we expand this? Like, I was looking, and there's income requirements, which I think is wonderful. You should prioritize that. But, like, for parents that maybe are middle income or upper, like, can we, you know, make them pay a little bit, asking for a friend? You know, maybe we would be willing to pay a little bit. I don't know, because that's a big deal, the 49%. My son went to private pre-K. Anyway, go ahead.
So I think I'll address the first comment that you made. How do we keep them, keep the children and make sure that they come to CMS? Last year, we did ask our parents at the end of the year, have you enrolled your child in CMS? If yes, where will your child go to school? If no, where will your child go to school for kindergarten? And we had 8% of the children that were enrolled in CMS, Bright Beginnings classrooms that went outside of CMS, whether to private school or charter school or wherever they moved out of town or they moved to another state. But we are going to intentionally, this year when we do our survey, reach back out to the parents to say, well, why didn't you not choose CMS? Mm-hmm. What is it that we need to do to find out where those gaps are?
Yeah, and just to add, so we partner closely with the CMS team to make sure that they're getting into all of our classrooms so we can aid with kindergarten enrollment towards the end of the, well, not towards the end of the year, because when it comes to the lottery and getting in for that, we've got to work with families, you know, even before the break to make sure that we get them signed up and enrolled. So that's been a process we've had for a while. There's also, Teresa, you can speak more to it, but there is, I don't know if it's required by the state, but there needs to be a kindergarten planning committee. So there's a whole larger group that Teresa leads. That's not just the pre-K folks. We work with childcare resources. We have other representation from the county there to get the word out amongst our programs. So it's a full court press and not just in the pre-K space there. The other thing I can add to your last question, so MEC Pre-K a few years ago went fully universal. So we have no income caps on our program for families. So I think, you know, while we do ensure that we maintain parity across our programs, we don't want to feel like one program is the better program or otherwise. I mean, the goal is to make sure that these are all high quality. We also recognize we offer different ways that we can get families enrolled, which is why we work jointly together to think about how we allocate classrooms across the county to ensure that we're not stepping over each other. How do we find places that there may be deserts that if CMS can't fill those spots, does MEC Pre-K have the ability to do so? So there is a ton of data work, joint planning, collaboration, marketing, you name it, that we do to make sure that we can get all of our programs out there. And if we ever have a wait list in our program or vice versa, we inform families if there are openings in other programs and everything too. So the amount of work that we're doing together is really with the goal to make sure that children and families get the best experience, not really a competition to say, you know, MEC Pre-K enrollment's got to be good at the expense of anywhere else.
And just as a side note, when we put our program together, we intentionally decided not to charge families any kind of copay to participate because the administrative burden associated with trying to stand up something like that it's a lot. And so we just didn't think it was worth it, so.
All right, so we have 7 minutes left. So, for this. And so, on my list, I have Altman, Klein, Rankin, Nunn, and Griffin. Other board members, you're gonna have to write your question on a card.
We take our time, we got some questions.
No, it starts at 8.
No.
We got 2 more things.
That's fine. I'll write it on the card, never do.
All right, so.
All right.
We ought to have this
Okay,
next.
okay. All right, so Byers Bailey and Dunlap. So it's Altman, Klein, Rankin, Nunn, Griffin, Byers Bailey, and Dunlap. So next up is Vice Chair Altman.
Thank you. I'll be very fast in the interest of time. Number one, I remember, I think Commissioner Dunlap once upon a time asking about the difficulty of applying, and I remember hearing something about a unified application, so if you can speak to that.
That's one of my questions, thank you.
Okay, see, I was paying attention to you. And then it looks like it's something like 6,500 seats total that have been filled, and all these programs are basically at capacity, more or less. How many hundreds or thousands of students do you believe need a seat that we don't have a spot for?
So to your first question, we had gone down the road a year or two ago into the weeds to talk about what would it look like to centralize through one front door to work through all that. We did get fairly far with that planning, and then at that time, and Dr. Balknight, you can speak better than I can, the district, I believe, was moving away from Power School to Infinite Camp, wherever you guys are at
Well,
now.
the state is moving away from Power School to Infinite Campus, so we are in conversion, and that's one of the things, as they mentioned, as a look ahead, to continue to work on that universal application process.
So
The
you're
state
still
is-
trying to do that?
Yes, that is still the plan to do that.
Okay, good.
But to move it to the new platform, which we are moving through this spring and summer and fall.
Okay.
So, yeah, so at the end of the day, whatever the front door is has to connect to the back door, and if we don't know what the back door is, we have to stop kind of the design on the front end, is where we got held up.
Okay. And capacity?
So I would have to triple check with what our wait lists are at right now. It's not a huge number of children. I mean, I would say all children could use it, but it's not. We do not have 1,000 children who are left out in the cold without a seat. It is probably double digits, if that, with where we are right now, because we have been much more efficient in, if we have a wait list, ensuring those families are aware of where CMS is at. At the end of the day, I think it's more geographically, where can we get into those places? And the challenge there becomes the private pay market can pay much more than we can for reimbursing for our seats. So we know the places that we don't get applications from. We've mapped it all out. Your South Charlotte Wedge, your northern townships, and it's hard for us to even just open classrooms there because they can charge families double than we would pay, for our reimbursement. So it's a matter of if we could build it, I think they would come, but that's the hard part.
All right, Board Member Klein.
All right, I've got 4 questions, and I'll drill them again in a quick fashion. With the pre-K, are the teachers certified? What is the pay scale for the, I'm just going to do it, and then does the pay scale match CMS's pay scale for teachers? And then does every classroom have a certified teacher teaching the children? Then the last question, the 49%, we break everything down by subgroups. I'd like to know what the subgroups are broken down so that we know how well the children are doing. There you go.
Well, the answer to the first 3 questions is yes, for all of them. The teachers do have educational and licensure requirements that they either come in with or work towards while they're with us. They are paid on the same pay scale as the CMS teachers, and all classrooms have the same standards regardless of program, both with curriculum, teacher requirements, et cetera. Data-wise, we would have to get back with our friends at CMS and figure out how to do that, but I would assume it's possible.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Vice Chair Rankin.
If you could go to the slide where you have the four assessments, EOIs and BOIs. You mentioned that, you said that the 2 assessments, the end of years and the beginning of years are directly aligned. Is that correct? You said they're directly aligned?
In terms of skill sets that are being measured.
Skill sets.
Correct, yes.
So, but are the EOYs predictive of the BOYs? So can we consider them predictive measurements?
I would say yes. I mean, I haven't run inferential analysis on that, but they're measuring the exact same skill set. So we would have to do some sort of longitudinal study to see the exact scores of children to.
So it's more directly aligned, not really more so predictive. Sounds like, but you could possibly make a guess to say, hey, if a student scores in this particular area, they should get this.
Because it's so skill-focused, yes, I would say that, because it's measuring the exact same skill. So if you leave pre-K and you can recognize letter sounds, I think we can safely assume that you're able to do that when you enter kindergarten.
And also, with end-of-year data, we saw beginning of year data, but we didn't see end-of-year data. Are we collecting end-of-year data so whether we could see that, and then also as a district, we will know going into what we're working with. So would it be possible to produce all of the students that are in all the programs, end-of-year data of where they are?
Yes, we can provide that information. CMS, we have to report out to our NC Pre-K committee every year, the beginning, middle, and end of the year data based on the past and letter ID and the teaching strategies gold data. So yes, we do have that data that we can share. Yes.
All right, thank you.
And I just want to also mention that Dibbles, looking at Dibbles, it's like in 60 seconds, how many letters can a child say? Whereas Teaching Strategies Gold is, I'm going to observe you over time to see how many letters you can identify in the classroom, or you can identify naturally during play.
So it sounds like
So that's
more
like
of
anecdotal.
I got you.
Board Member Nunn?
Thank you. I have a few questions. I'm going to go quickly, too. As a mom of younger people, I can tell you it is absolutely necessary that we move to a universal application. I have corrected so many people in trying to understand what our pre-K programs are. The other thing I think we should do is an analysis on how do we collapse the efforts amongst all these individual programs. I think holistically we should go to market with pre-K because I know there's a lot of costs, as I can tell you from my corporate background, in marketing, HR, curriculum, and all those things that seem a little duplicative at this point. So I would like to understand if we can look at how does this become Mecklenburg County's approach to pre-K here too. And I would implore you, as Member Monterey Duval said, this can be a revenue source. I actually paid for pre-K because I went through the Montessori program with both mine, and it was tremendous. And I happily paid it over the high cost of childcare, especially if we can get 3- and 4-year-olds with a certified teacher quicker. Parents will line up for that in this county. They will line up for that. That's all I want to implore us to think about.
All right,
Plus 1,000.
They will line up.
Commissioner Griffin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Been thinking about how to ask this question. A lot of us are parents in here, and once our children were born in the hospital, the doctor would do something called an ABGAR, a little quick assessment in terms of breathing, respiration, et cetera. And we'll turn around to a parent and say, hey, look, you got a healthy boy, healthy girl. What I'm looking for in terms of MEC pre-K and pre-K generally is a healthy sign to say, hey, this pre-K youngster now in kindergarten is educationally healthy and ready to learn. And when I look at what we're doing, there's one indicator, which is DIBBLES, but there are others in terms of can you count? Can you recognize your numbers to 10, et cetera? Are you attending school, et cetera? So I'm looking for more than just DIBBLES to give me a healthy assessment piece, and I'm trying to get there somehow or another, because otherwise it's like your newborn baby has great respiration, but there are a lot of other issues going on that we don't know about. So help me figure out how to go beyond that, because when Vilma and George and I were on the school board years ago, we were able to get that information and get a framework. Although it wasn't dictated by the state like DIBBLES, there were benchmarks for attendance, there was benchmarks for numeracy, et cetera. That's what I'm looking for us, because we've spent over $100 million with MEC pre-K, and I want to see, are these kids educationally healthy when they get to kindergarten? And right now, we only get one piece of that with DIBBLES. Can you help me in terms of how can we see that we have a healthy baby?
I think it's a great question. I'm glad that you asked it. I think one of the things that, as they've talked about and then looking forward, we will continue to pull more data collaboratively. I think we need to go back to our pre-K data. We do have checkpoints throughout the year, so if we pull that pre-K data throughout the year and look at the same measurements across all programs consistently, then we will have very specific data end of year pre-K. And so that's one of our look aheads that we're working on for the upcoming year. So I do think that's a way before they get to kindergarten and you're waiting on the BOY dibbles that you would have information in real time, so that as we work with pre-K students and invite them to summer camp before kindergarten, that also is a way for us to know how to address those kids in a deeper way across all programs in the county.
Think we could get that by next year?
We are working to stand that up for the 25-26 school year, so.
Can we help you, the county? No, I can't speak for the county.
Well, I will
can
say
speak
that
for
Tim is a
myself.
great partner. Tim is a great partner. So your representative on that work they're doing what they're supposed to as well to make sure we can move in that direction. Can't promise that'll be perfect in the first year, but we're certainly moving in that direction.
All right.
That's the best news I've heard yet. Dina?
Board Member Byers Bailey.
Thank you. Following up on what's been said already, we know that we can get our kids, whether they're preschool, kindergarten, whatever, so far from beginning of school to the end of school, but if they don't do something through the summer, they're going to have a summer slide. Some of our kids get an opportunity to get someplace, a library or church, but there are a lot of kids that come back and they have slid, and it just about breaks the teacher heart if they saw them last year and they were doing 70 and now they're doing 30. What are we doing about that universally?
One of the things that we've been doing in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, and we will continue to do, is to offer pre-K students a summer experience, so to avoid some of the summer slide. So we can certainly come back and share that specific data, the numbers that were enrolled last year and those that will enroll this summer.
Okay, because I've heard from teachers that they have that also between the kindergarten leaving, got their kid all the way up to 80 and they come back and they're 40. And that just is distressing.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Dunlap.
I'll be quick because all of my questions have been answered except for one. We talked about the number of positions available, 6,483, yet we have 295 vacancies. That's a lot of classrooms. And then I hear about all these marketing strategies and all these other things that you're doing. You know, that's 295 slots going to waste. I want to know what we're going to do to fill them. And apparently the marketing strategy isn't working, so we need to do something differently.
And I would like to address that. One of the things that we are experiencing is transportation concerns with the NC Pre-K Child Development Centers. Within CMS, children can ride a bus to come to school. If the child is enrolled in an NC Pre-K classroom, then we are depending on the parents to transport the child to and from school, and parents may need before and after school care. And our program is a 6.5-hour day program. Anything additional to that would require additional funding for us to provide before and after school care. Those are the two major barriers to access for our NC Pre-K families, transportation and wraparound care.
One of the questions that was asked initially was, how can we help? So we need to talk about that.
Yes, that's great.
All right. Commissioner Meyer.
Oh, thank you. I actually wrote them down, but I will go ahead and say them. Comparing the public pre-K students, you had compared them, who are you comparing them to? Those who have had none training before, or private pre-K, or who are you?
So the numbers that we have currently, and those are from just the initial data set that was pulled this year, that was to the district scores as a whole, which is actually inclusive of our children. So if you were to pull the public pre-K children out, they're actually pulling that number up.
Okay.
So you would see an even greater disparity between children who did not attend public pre-K. Now, I do believe on the kindergarten application, it does ask a question about, where did you attend? it just gets hard to tease out sort of private care and other things like that to say cleanly if a child did attend somewhere else or otherwise. So the easiest thing we can do right now is look at, we know who was in public pre-K, and we can make larger comparisons to the kids who weren't in that subset.
Okay. And then my only other one was, are we able to follow MEC pre-K students with an ID number? Did that ever get resolved?
Yes, it did. That's how we're able to get the data that we have right now.
So we can follow them through, all the way through school?
So starting last year, we worked with the CMS team. We delivered our roster of MEC pre-K graduates. Their data team worked to match that to their kindergarten rosters. And so through that exercise, they linked the CMS ID to our MEC pre-K ID. And they have already done that for our graduates from last year and have committed to keep working with us moving forward.
Okay, and MEC pre-K kids, do they receive transportation?
We provide a subsidy to the centers to help
Okay.
offset the cost of transportation.
Okay, thank you. That's
But I can say anecdotally to Teresa's point, fewer and fewer centers are offering it now.
interesting. Okay, thank you.
All right, Board Member Easley?
I just kind of wanted to follow up with Board Member Byers-Bailey's thought. She mentioned that there is not a summer program, and you mentioned that only MEC pre-K graduates can have a summer program. Is that correct? Is that what I heard?
No, ma'am, there is a process where we look at data and invite 4-year-olds to, or rising kindergartners to our summer camp. We don't exclude or select kids based on MEC pre-K or not.
Okay, thank you. That's what.
All right, Chair Jarrell?
Thank you for the presentation. A couple clarifying things. When we're looking at the slide that shows student outcome goal 1, the interim measure, Tim, am I understanding to Commissioner Myers' question, this is MEC pre-K data? This isn't all of pre-K, like NC pre-K, Bright Beginnings, and MEC pre-K?
So, sorry, we should have clarified. On the left-hand side of the screen, to Commissioner Myers' point, those are all kindergartners in CMS, regardless of their 4-year-old experience.
Okay.
On the right-hand side of the screen, that is showing for the current school year, 24-25, those are children who graduated from one of our 3 public pre-K programs.
From one of the 3, and that, okay, I wanted to make sure I was tracking with you on that. To that point, I think our board in particular would want to see MEC pre-K teased out with that data, specifically because you're saying that there is this ID number, or however we're tracking it. And I want to thank Dr. Balknight, because I believe it's a manual process. So thank you to you and your team for being able to do that, and everybody that's involved in that. We appreciate it, because it is important, number one. The other thing is, are we sure with respect to MEC pre-K, because I want to put something to bed for the public, we don't have a cap with respect to income. Are we confident that we are hitting the families, though, that we really want to target, the most vulnerable families that need this level of access to education at this point in their child's lives?
So we do still gather information from families on self-reported household income to keep an eye on that. And since we have gone to fully universal, we have not seen a significant shift in the income composition of the children that we have in the program. So I think the way that we market the program, and more importantly, where we're placing our classrooms in terms of where they're located, right? Because people are more apt to come from a neighborhood location than to drive halfway across the city to get there. So I think we continue to try to target those areas that we think have the greatest need. I would also say when we go through to place students, we generally wait a couple months for applications to come in, because to your point, we generally know the families who are probably more well-educated and more well-resourced are going to be the first ones in line to apply. So we wait till we build up a pool of applications, and then we're looking not only at household income, but looking at developmental need, English language learners, et cetera. And so we prioritize placement of children who have the greatest need. So we were very conscious of, when we removed any income cap, to keep a very close eye on the spirit of the program as it was designed.
But you do prioritize based on income here.
Excuse me one second, board member, because I'm not finished. My time is up, but I've got one follow-up. And it's no problem. I want to, and you can take this offline, but one of the things I'm really concerned about, when we look at the 3 big programs, major programs, including MEC pre-K, are all programs created equal, essentially? Are they looking at the same curriculum, or are we Is one better? Is one the gold standard? Is one not? You don't have to answer that now. We'll go to Board Member Duval, but I'd like to get that in a follow-up, please.
I guess I'm confused because it says here that, thank you, Chair Jarrell. I'm confused here because it says that you do prioritize based on need. So am I reading something wrong? Like I'm looking at your slide, MEC pre-K, none other than residency in Mecklenburg County, but families are prioritized based on need, income, and documented risk factors.
So yeah, to Commissioner Jarrell's question, or Chair Jarrell's question prior to that, when we removed the income cap on the program, I think there was a fear that would all of a sudden now those families that we designed this program to serve and meet the need, were they going to be pushed out? And so the point that we try to emphasize in our registration and enrollment process, when we go to do our placements and we take a look at our placement pool, even though everyone is eligible to get on the bus, we do try to prioritize families who have the greatest need to make sure that the spirit the program was designed in is still there.
Thank you.
Right. I have a question. Dr. Balknight, can you talk about all of the testings that the pre-K students go to Commissioner to Commissioner Griffin's point? He's talking about what are we testing on besides dibbles? And then the other question I have is, I just want to be clear in that slide you just showed, the end of year, do we have end of year data from these other programs, MEC pre-K, that are not CMS? And are they taking the same test that a CMS student in pre-K would take, or is there a difference? Are they taking the same assessments?
Keep going. No, it's the one with the 4. EOY, BOY.
So I think you're asking, across all of the publicly funded pre-K programs, are we all using the same curriculum, the same formative assessment? Is that the question?
The same assessment at the end of year.
At the end of year?
Pre-K year.
Oh,
Are they
at the
taking
end of the
same
pre-K year.
assessments? Yes.
I think that is where our next steps, looking forward, for us to do a gap analysis, to look at what each program is doing. So across the board, we can say children that are enrolled in a 4-year-old program in Mecklenburg County, when the teachers are doing the teaching strategies gold, let me go back to the,
Yes.
we look at all of these domains. There are, Denise Addison may have to help me, but there are hundreds of objectives throughout this domain. And all of the CMS teachers, we do all of the domains across the board. I want to say it's 75 objectives, and under each objective is a milestone from birth to a child that's 8 years old. And the teacher is observing that child throughout the year, throughout that trimester. That's how the teacher is doing her differentiated instruction. So there's a social emotional piece, language, physical, cognitive, mathematics, and we also look at English language learners as well. We will have to do a gap analysis to say, is that happening in MEC pre-K? Is that happening in Head Start? And we have not reached that point yet. That was the looking forward, that we need to all make sure across the board, if we have an assessment, this is the assessment that we're using, and we use that assessment to fidelity, if that makes sense.
We use past and TS Gold as well.
And yes, yes.
But are the same components from TS Gold and what's the other thing mentioned? Are those, are they lined, are they one-to-one?
I think the question is, are we both using the same assessment?
We're using the same assessment, but our programs are not, at this point, I can't tell you whether or not MEC Pre-K and Head Start are using the assessment to fidelity that CMS is using the assessments. That's something I think we need to sit down and look at, okay, for social emotional, which objectives are you doing Head Start? Which objectives are you covering for MEC Pre-K? We haven't gotten an opportunity to do that yet because we were so focused on this waiting list and making sure that we get children placed in classrooms as quickly as we can and making sure that we didn't have the duplicates in the numbers.
All right, thank you. And then we have one more question from Vice Chair Rankin, and then I think we need to move to our next topic.
So that was my line of questioning when I was asking about, if you could go back to where the assessments was EOYs and BOYs.
Yes.
That particular slide, when I say are they, keep going, yep, right there. I was saying, are they predictive? And it sounds like what you're saying is, my worry is if there's a teacher's way of identifying these skills through observation, that's subjective. But that's the issue that I'm having. So they could vary from teacher to teacher, class to class. So that's my worry. So I'm trying to figure out, are there standards via EOY that align with the benchmarks that we have, say in kindergarten, to say if they hit these particular standards or particular benchmarks in the EOI, we know they should be here. That's what I wanted to see. Kind of follow along with Ms. Sneed was saying, is all of our programs using the same curriculum, same standards, and doing those different things with fidelity, and are they standardized?
So I want to say first, MEC Pre-K and CMS Pre-K, they are implementing these assessments with fidelity. The difference is that we may use more components of the assessment than other agencies. That's the look ahead. So we're all doing the same assessment, we're all doing it with fidelity, but we may not be doing all components of the assessment. So when I said that the work for 25-26, that's the work of 25-26. So you're exactly right, but that's the goal for 25-26, that we decide what pieces or all are we going to use of the assessment and do that consistent across the district. So this time next year, we can bring you specific components in and show you the data across the programs. So MEC Pre-K is using their assessments with fidelity, as is CMS. And one of the things that we can do next year when we do BOY, MOY, and EOY in Pre-K, while it's anecdotal, it's 3 times a year, so you're able to triangulate that data to get some reliable predictability out of the data by the end of the year, even though the teacher is observing it and collecting the data.
Thank you.
All right, turn to Commissioner Jarrell for our last topic. Thank you so much.
All right, so the final presentation of the night is one of our county programs called MEC Success.
All right, good evening, everyone. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present today regarding a program that's within my department. My name is Yolanda Griffin, and I'm the Director for Department of Community Resources. And I'll be providing you an overview of our MEC Success program today. Now, the MEC Success program is operated through our Community Resources Division, and it is focused on assisting Mecklenburg County families in achieving improved quality of life outcomes through a 2-generation approach. The program focuses on economic mobility, educational excellence, and personal and professional development for both the adults and children that reside in a household. Now, at a high level, the program begins with holistic family assessments for each individual in the family. We work with those families to develop a program that has family-driven case plans where we are really focused on the overall well-being of the family. That includes areas such as family stability, housing, physical and mental health, social supports, education, employment, and financial management. And that is focused on that entire household. So when we're looking at the plans, we're looking at what are those needs of the adults in the household as well as the children in the household. For the adults, we do provide support in coaching, education, employment, as well as wraparound services. For our youth in the program, they receive supportive services that are focused on individualized tutoring, social and emotional learning, opportunities to improve their social capital through mentoring, college and career readiness, as well as etiquette training. Additionally, an extremely important component of the program is that we want to incorporate the voice of those who are actually participating in the program. And so this is where we have our adult and youth advisory boards, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. Lastly, we want to ensure that individuals are not just successful while they're in the program, but once it's time for our individuals to exit that program, that we work with them and ensure that there is a plan for self-sufficiency as they transition out. Now, when we look at the MEC Success Program, as I mentioned earlier, it is a two-generation approach. And so individuals commit to participating in the program from 2 to 5 years. As we're working with them, we are working with the adults so that we can help them to achieve a living wage job. And the children, we're working to improve outcomes within school for those children. Now, with this particular program, we did begin our first cohort in the summer of 2024. And so, of course, our goal was the 30 families. I'll talk a little bit about the number of families that we have, but we are achieving that goal. And we will open our second cohort for families in March of this year. At a high level, when we look at the program participants for MEC Success, we do have a great number of participants that are residing in subsidized housing. And that part is basically because we are partnering with Enlivian as well as Renaissance West. We are partnering with Enlivian at the Gastons at North End to enroll participants, and we partnered with Renaissance West as well. So we have a large number of participants that do reside in subsidized housing. Another requirement for the program is that you must have minor children in the home. Again, it is a two-generation program, and so we're supporting the advancement of the adults and the children in the home. The family must have a goal of achieving a living wage either through education or employment, whether that be we're supporting you with certifications that may assist you with achieving a living wage employment, or you're taking additional college courses, trainings that will help support you in getting a living wage. Now, when we talk about living wage, that can vary based on the household size, what the family has going on. But generally speaking, when we talk about our participants, I would share that most of them are working. 61% of the participants that we have in the program are working. But if you look at their average income, it's about a little over $17 per hour. And so when we think about a living wage, if you think about all the expenses that an individual must have to support themselves and support their family, that doesn't come close to a living wage. For example, when you use the MIT living wage calculator for a household size of 4, you have an adult and 3 children. If they're not receiving any type of assistance, $65.22 per hour would be considered a living wage. Now, that's going to vary based on the age of your children, if you don't have to pay childcare, if you don't have to pay housing expenses, if you don't have to pay medical expenses. All of that will vary based on your specific situation. And the last thing is that the family must be willing to work with our MEC Success social workers to assist them as they're working towards achieving their goals. Now, for our program, the projected outcomes were developed for both our adult and our youth participants. For the adult participants, the overall goal, as I mentioned, is the increased economic mobility through education and/or living wage employment. The projected outcomes for youth in the program were developed very closely to align with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg's 2024 through 2029 goals. And as you can see, the focus is on improved attendance, academics, and decreased behavioral incidents. Now, I will say that the slide that you may have in your packet may vary a bit from this one, as we wanted to include some additional information about what we will be providing for those students that we are helping to become college and career ready. We are, of course, going to monitor those academic benchmarks. We'll be providing them with career exploration activities, and we'll ensure their participation in those different activities. And also, we're going to be assessing critical thinking, communication, and collaboration. Those skills, some of those skills that are necessary for someone to really be prepared for college or career ready. And additionally, we're going to ensure that each participant within our program does have a plan developed for a pathway into enrollment, employment, entrepreneurship, or enlistment. For this particular program, as I stated, we started with our first cohort in 2024, so FY 2025 will serve as our baseline year. Now, currently, we have 34 families that are participating within our first cohort with the MEC Success Program. With that number, there are approximately 36 adults. And so as you can see, that means that the majority of the households do have one adult in the household. And we have a total of 91 children that are participating in the program. We wanted to provide you with an overview of the child participants that are currently enrolled in the program. And so you can see from this snapshot of the demographics, on average, each household contains between 2 to 3 children. 57% of the children are females, while 43% are males. 92% are Black or African American. And additionally, the largest group of children range between the ages of 5 and 10 years old. 74% of all the school-age children within our program attend Title I schools. This gives you a listing of the schools that our students are attending currently, and they're attending 22 different schools, and as you can see, 82% do attend CMS schools, but we do have a mixture of about 4 charter schools that are included as well. And this particular slide summarizes some of the programming that we offer for the adults as well as the youth within the program. For our adults, the primary focus is, as I mentioned, working towards that goal of living wage employment. And so we have exposure to career pathways, offering a living wage through career navigation. We do that through our partnership with CPCC, as well as our work with Charlotte Works. Additionally, our other programs that are workforce development focused within our department, and also financial counseling for those individuals as well. For our youth, we offer college and career services, mentoring, tutoring, and social and emotional learning services as well. We have an attendance program, as we spoke about at the beginning. One of our goals is improved attendance, so we make sure that we focus on that. And then age-appropriate financial literacy programming for the students as well. With this particular slide, we wanted to highlight the different partners that we work with to ensure that we're able to provide the services for the individuals in the program. Of course, we have our Mecklenburg County staff, and with our particular staff, we are very lucky to have dedicated staff who are focused on the program, solely focused on this program and the support that we provide for it. These professionals are in social work, employment services, as well as they have educational experience for vulnerable populations. We have our 2 academic advisors as part of this team, and they ensure that they provide guidance towards any issues that may concern our ability to help improve the education and academics of the students that are enrolled in the program. We also partner, again, I won't go through all the individuals and organizations that we partner with, but as you can see, we are offering education navigation with our partnership with CPCC. We offer etiquette services and college readiness programs through our partner, the Etiquette Doctor, as well as entrepreneurship, so that individuals are able to build their social capital and work towards careers. We work with communities and schools and the Attendance Plus program, which is a big focus in engaging our parents to also support their children as we are ensuring that they are in school, paying attention, being able to work, and helping to incentivize their attendance at school as well. And then the last piece or area is the program evaluation. We want to ensure that the work that we are doing is being effective. And so we have contracted with Work for Change through the RFP process to provide us an evaluation as well as feedback on how we may be able to enhance our program. Now, I mentioned us wanting to hear the voice of the customer, and so we are doing that through our advisory groups. We have both parent and youth advisory groups, and it's led by our program coordinator. And this person is able to work with the individuals in our advisory group, gain feedback on our program, as well as community needs and what are the needs of the individuals that we serve. We do want to respect the experience and knowledge of those individuals, so they do receive a small stipend for participating in the program. And we hold meetings with them at least monthly to ensure that we are getting that valuable feedback from those individuals. And that is a high-level overview of our MEC Success program, and I will defer to Chair Jarrell for any questions.
Thank you, Director Griffin. What we'll do is, Chair Sneed, if it's okay with you, county commissioners are pretty familiar with the MEC Success program, although I suspect there'll be some questions, but we'll go with the Board of Education first.
I have Vice Chair Rankin first.
Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it. Well, first, is there a MOU or data sharing between the district and this program for data?
There is, and we actually just not recently completed that, but we received our request to be able to access that information. Okay. And so we've submitted that request so we can get the information for the students that are participating in our program and are enrolled in CMS.
And so the reason I asked that, if you go, on slide 9, it lists right there. Yep, yep, right there. If you see on the youth services side, under each category, it identifies the tool that is used. So, for example, College and Career Services, you're using College Access Series, Entrepreneurial Workshop. But there's the tools. But under attendance program, I don't see the tool listed there. It's just saying, it's almost like an aspirational goal of what we want to do to achieve the attendance program. But I don't see the tool that's being used to identify that, hey, we're going to use this particular tool to improve attendance. And is there a tool that you're using to improve attendance?
This is actually a program that we are partnering with communities and schools where they have worked to develop a program to actually monitor the students' attendance to see if there are any issues with their attendance. They are also have developed a program to incentivize students being able to actually attend school, reward them when they are attending well, encourage them, gain access with the parents as well. So they involve those parents to help say, hey, let's look at your child's attendance. What can we do to help support them? But really, it's working with the parents, working with the students, and providing those incentives for the students to improve their attendance.
I have one more I had to finish up. I'll come back.
We'll circle back. Board membership.
Yes, on page 5, and this is good, this is really much needed for our families and youth. Under program outcome measures, you have these, do you have metrics or data yet on any of this?
We do not have that yet. This is going to be our baseline year.
Okay.
And so as to Mr. Rankin's point, we will be working with CMS to see where the students are in school as well. And as we look with each individual, see where they start out from, as well as targeting higher level goals overall for the program and for the participants in the program.
So 2024, this is your baseline, this is.
Yes, ma'am.
First year, okay. Thank you.
So FY25. We started at the end of 2024. We worked with the students some of the students during the summer as they were signing up. And then as we moved into FY25, that's when we really started the programming piece with working with the tutors, working with the mentors, doing the social emotional learning and those different programs with them.
Thank you.
All right, Board Member Monterey Devon.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin, for your presentation. I think this is right on the nose. I love that this improved academics is a focal point. I'm giving you this context because I'm gonna ask you this question.
Okay.
Because the way CMS looks at SOFG, student outcomes focused government, our demographic breakdown is a little bit different than yours. So Hispanic and Latino is not a race, right? But if we reference back to the presentation that Dr. Thompson gave, the widest achievement gap is between Hispanics. And so how are we approaching that? Like, is there an opportunity for us to align our demographics? Like, I know that this is a smaller program, you're piloting it. This is not like something to like get you or anything like that. It's just out of curiosity. Like, how are we thinking about that? How are we thinking about that?
And so you raise a great point because we do know, and we're from human services programming, depending on the program, there is a difference in the way race and ethnicity is captured, what that looks like. We definitely have the opportunity to be able to work with CMS to see how that information is captured, and so that we can work together to kind of compare apples to apples.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. I particularly have a question about the youth services. So it's a number of questions. I'm just ask them all at once. Has CMS been consulted or been sought as a partner in any way in this pilot? The second question I have is under Teach Tech. I know you do in-person tutoring, mentoring, social emotional learning. Like, how is that conducted? Is that after school? Is it during school hours? The other question is, if you're doing in-person tutoring, you don't have a data sharing agreement, how are you aware, how are they making the assessment of where the tutoring support is needed? And then the last question I have is, I know you're looking for data sharing agreement. You have the information from communities and schools. Do they not have any interim data on how their Attendance Plus program is working?
So at this time, I guess I better back up because you had a couple of questions. All right, so with Teach Tech does also, although we don't have the initial information from CMS on the students and where they were, Teach Tech uses a software where they do assessments through the IXL platform. And so they're able to utilize that and other supplementary tools to test where the students are or assess where the students are based on that platform and information. And so they're able to determine what type of tutoring they may need from reading, math, and other core subjects, utilizing that information. As we get the information from CMS, we will also share that information so that we can develop those individual development plans, add to that individual development plan for those particular students to see if there's any differences in what the needs are for those students.
Before you move on from that, the other part of that question is, how is that? It's in-person tutoring. How are they interacting with the students?
So it is after school. With Teach Tech, they do have individuals that have experience in education that they're working with. And actually, with this particular program, we are utilizing those individuals to not only be their tutors, they're working with them as the mentoring and assisting them in social emotional as well, so that we don't have too many individuals that are interacting with the students. But they do have that, depending on what the needs are for those students, it is in person, and based on their needs, it'll kind of determine how often they'll actually have to have the in-person tutoring.
So the other questions were communities and schools. Did you have any interim data regarding how the Attendance Plus program is successful or not? Because it's been a semester, so I would think that they would have some information on, is attendance approved or not?
I don't have that information with me now. We can go back and review. We do receive reports from those students from CIS on the students that they are helping to support. But I don't have that information right now. We can look to be able to provide that information for you, though.
All right, thank you. I think next up was Board Member Byers-Bailey, followed by Dr. Witherspoon.
Thank you. I'm focused a little bit on the adult services that you're offering, thinking particularly of young people who may have dropped out of school, gotten a GED, moved to Charlotte from out of state, so they're gonna, if they try to go to CPCC, they're gonna be faced with out-of-state tuition, but they don't have money to go to school anyway, and they're making a minimum wage job. How do they get help through your adult services program?
So this particular program is specifically for families. If it's a young person that does not have children, for this particular program, they would not qualify. We can look at other programs that may be available for them, potentially through Charlotte Works or other partners that we may have. So if we received a person who did not meet the qualifications for this particular program, we always look to see what other programs might be available that our partners offer that we can refer them to.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your presentation. I can't wait to see the impact of and the success of this program. I'm just interested to know what the relationship is with Central Cabarrus.
So that is an outlier. That is actually a recent person who joined our program. They recently relocated from Central Cabarrus, and the individual does live in Mecklenburg County, and they're in between that transition from Cabarrus County to Mecklenburg County.
You need some help getting help and do it tonight, right?
We definitely can support them as they transition.
All right, I think Vice Chair Rankin had a follow-up.
Thank you. First, I do want to say I think this is a great program. Whenever we're talking about economic mobility, empowering our families, I think it's great, and hopefully, I definitely want to see it make sure it's successful. So my follow-up was around the MOU. Whenever there's an opportunity for our board and the commission to work collaboratively, I think we should try and take advantage of the opportunity. And if we're serving families within our schools, like, for example, how do we know the families that we're targeting, that they have an attendance problem if we don't know the data? Right? Or maybe they're going to school, but that their grades are off. So we may be measuring the wrong thing. So do we know, is it targeting more of the adult behavior or the youth behavior when you're taking the applications for this particular program?
So we're starting out, of course, when we think about the students and we're looking at the whole family, in order for us to be able to really work and support those students and the family as well, the parent definitely has to be willing to participate, and we want them to be engaged in these services for their students. So not all students will have an attendance issue.
Okay.
We have this program available to specifically support when there is an attendance issue for those students. They're identified. CIS helps us identify students as we're working with the families as well, so that we know, is there a problem with chronic absenteeism? Part of this is contract as well with our parents. We do an agreement where they agree to be an engaged participant with social work. So if you have access to Power School, we can work with you, look at what's in Power School to be able to help support you as well. If you know your child is having some issues with attendance, or you're sharing that as we evaluate and our social workers assess what's going on with the family, we have those conversations and discuss the needs of the family with those adults. And if that's an issue, then we can refer to the Attendance Plus program as well.
Thank you.
I just have one follow-up. I encourage our staff to work with you all to get that MOU expedited as quickly as possible, because one semester, half of the school year is essentially already passed by. And I also encourage you to talk with our staff, community and family engagement, because I see a lot of opportunities here, particularly with college and career readiness. Some issues are with families not knowing what program CMS has, right? That, you know, if they want to be in robotics or something like that, or, you know, automotive, like what schools and what magnet programs they should be attending, what courses they should be taking. So I just see there's some opportunity here to engage with us in order to help this youth services area succeed.
And I will say, we have the data sharing agreement completed. We recently received the request where our individuals had to get access to the system to submit our requests for the students that we need information on.
Okay.
So from my understanding, within the next couple of weeks, we should have information.
Okay.
But thank you for that as well.
So Director Griffin, before you take your seat, I think there's some burning questions from a couple of commissioners. So I see Commissioner Dunlap's hand.
Well, I'll defer to Commissioner Griffin, because I know we're on the same line.
God have mercy, some but none. No, I just think that,
He's speechless.
I'm speechless, you got it. Ms. Griffin, you've done an excellent job. The participation's up. I think what people sometimes miss is that it's intergenerational. If you're working with the parent and you're trying to move the parent forward economically in terms of mobility, he or she is stressing out because of issues with the children or relatives in terms of health care, the wraparound services, the support and the partnerships are there. The only thing I would have as a suggestion, I just think is great, and I think our next step will be a residential academy on Graham Street, I hope. But I would really hope that we can move next year or the next phase to partner with specific employers, Atrium, Lowe's, et cetera, so that people will be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think, as I said, you know this internally, we do have some corporate CEOs who are really willing to step up to the plate and go out to these communities and talk to some of these families when we're ready for that. So this is an exciting beginning. Dina and I just beat up on each other, but we have come a long way from 2023. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Madam Chair, CMS. This is really something that we both can benefit from.
Absolutely.
Schools as well as the community, individual families.
So Commissioner Dunlap, you deferred, but
Well, yeah, because the one thing that I saw in this was that there's these potential gaps. Because if the children are doing all the things you want them to do and the parent is doing all the things that you want them to do, then who's taking care of the child? And so whether or not there's some additional revenue that you could, I don't know, child care, support the parent with, I forgot the program that we were talking about, providing gap funding or something to the parent, because it just doesn't, it just seems like there's a disconnect. Everybody can't be doing what everybody's supposed to be doing and still caring for the kid, and then the parent still seeking employment. Something's missing.
So, thank you for that. What I will say is that we can provide child care assistance support for families participating in the program. That's part of some of the supportive services. So when you think about what might somebody need as they're going into training, whether that's technology assistance, whether that's some assistance with transportation potentially, but child care assistance definitely is part of that. One of the reasons as well, as I mentioned, with the parent advisory group is because we definitely do recognize the need to be able to provide some type of support as individuals get engaged and we're utilizing their experience, their knowledge. We do want to provide them some type of compensation for that. And so that is where the participation in our parent advisory groups come in as well. But definitely hear what your recommendations are as well.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you. We'll go to Commissioner Griffin. We'll get to,
I just wanted
and then
to-
I've got a comment.
Yeah, just wanted to say that one of the legislative issues that's really important is this benefits cliff piece. And, you know, that's on the horizon that we have to deal with. So as people income, as participants' incomes increase, we have to make sure that we don't pull the rug out from under them. So we are going to continue to work on the benefits cliff issue from a legislative agenda perspective.
Thank you for that.
Move to adjourn.
Commissioner Jarrell, this is the last item on the agenda?
This is the last item on the
Okay. I just want to give a shout out to the our county partners HVA system because the heat is definitely working in here. It's working.
You're right.
It is working.
Well, you're welcome. Okay. But there's one thing that I want to say before we go to Chair's closing comments. I want to double down on what Commissioner Dunlap is talking about, and with respect to Commissioner Griffin and solving to this benefits cliff. You know, when we look at these programs, and you take the big rocks, I mean, support for childcare is critical. But if I'm in a program and I'm trying to get training, I'm in a training program, workforce development program, but I'm still working my full-time job, raising my children, also doing this, something has to give, and I think that's where Commissioner Dunlap is driving towards, and I'm of the same mind. We've got to allow people, find a mechanism and a vehicle to allow people to fully focus on that workforce program so that they can move from that $13, $14 an hour to the $28, $30 an hour. But, you know, again, to Commissioner Griffin's point, you know, it puts them on this benefits cliff where they lose more than they gain in a short term. But I really would like us to focus on how we solve to that. So thank you very much.
Just to say real quickly, a CNA that makes not a whole lot, that works for Atrium, for example, to have a partnership with Atrium that will give them 2 or 3 hours on the job while they're getting paid to also be in school. Because they can't work 8 hours a day and then come home and go to class for 2 hours.
Yeah,
So
well,
we're trying to-
there's definitely a solve. There's a solve to it. I think it's going to take us being really creative to try to figure that out. But I think we have to if we're going to expand success. So we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was really great. So we'll go with closing comments from the chair, Chair Snead.
Move to adjourn.
Just wanted to thank everyone, board members, all board members and staff alike that have prepared these extensive presentations, including indexes and being thoughtful with your questions. Thank you, board members, also for your intriguing questions to help us move forward. I'm happy to be a part of the era of BOCC and BOE collaboratively working together for the greater good and recognizing all the needs that we both have as entities, and not just the students, but as well as those others that are in need in our community. I think we're on a path for a gold standard, and to be an example of how boards should work, public entities should work intergovernmentally moving forward.
Thank you, Chair Snead. Before I go to my last comment, I do want to take this moment to recognize that I believe this is our county manager's last joint meeting between these two boards. And I did not want this moment.
Wow.
And while she's ecstatic, no, but I didn't want this moment to go by without lifting that fact up and thanking her on behalf of our board in particular, and I don't want to speak for your board, but for your leadership and everything that you've done to get us to where we are.
Well, we'll reserve our comment till after the budget cycle.
Tough negotiating.
No, we definitely appreciate how county manager has really been thoughtful in helping us get to where we need to be and fully funded budget cycles. It is appreciated not only by this board, but the community as well.
Thank you. So with that being said, I think as we leave tonight, there are a couple takeaways that I personally have. I do want to thank both staffs, in particular for these great presentations, for the hard work, for the collaboration. I think it's also reflective of the leadership between both boards. And as I look across the dais, it's really striking that the overwhelming majority of us have relationships and have had relationships for many years now. And I think the community is actually seeing the results of that. One of the key takeaways from tonight, though, is going to be we have to continue to work together. There are going to be tough questions moving forward. There are going to be major challenges moving forward. But I think what we've seen over the last few years is that we continue to work together. We continue to have those discussions. We continue to come and really have these good faith efforts around these tough decisions. And we stay focused on what the agenda is. We keep the main thing the main thing. We want a great community. We want every child to be educated and have a high-quality education. And that's our main goal. And everyone sitting around this dais has that same goal. And everyone that's a part of our staffs, whether it's BOE or BOCC, have those same goals. And we can achieve that if we keep our eye on the ball. So thank you, everybody. I'll call this meeting adjourned.
All righty. That was good. Bam.
8:30.